Members of council to chambers for quorum. Thank you, Councillor Doucette.
So what are you waiting for?
Rosemary, sit down.
You got this under control? You need a hand? Councillor Ford? Councillor Campbell?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't pay attention.
Oh, yeah.
Councillor Channel? Oh, see, he's listening.
How are you?
Oh, good.
Nice to see you.
Oh, great to see you.
Oh,
Always
good to be alive.
Good.
Were you at the horse race on the weekend?
Yes.
So was
I blew my brains out as usual.
Yeah,
Okay.
so was Campbell.
Oh,
Where were you?
Up north.
Ah.
I heard Bill Carew was there.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I call this meeting to order as we have quorum. It's our last meeting of the term. Happy July 4th to all our American friends today. Before I get started, I'd like to run members of the evening session tonight, and everybody's said they'd be here tonight except for one. Councillor Crisanti, everyone's here for the meeting tonight? Councilor Mamalidi, you're not here? Everybody else is here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's EY 32.14, request for directions report 3005 Bloor Street West and 14 Humbervale Boulevard official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications in Councilor DeChano's ward. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, Mr. Cresswell?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to remind Community Council that on the evening item this evening, I'm a property owner in the condo next door to 3005 Bloor Street, so I will not be attending this evening's session for that item.
Okay, duly noted, thank you. I'll now take a motion to confirm the minutes from June 6, 2018. Moved by Councilor Ford, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Are there any petitions at this time? Petitions? Councilor Campbell? Come on. Really?
One.
Make one up.
No. Okay, now we'll go through the items. 32.1, final report, 408 Browns Line zoning bylaw amendment application. There are speakers at 10 o'clock. 32.2, final report, 2978, 2988 Dundas Street West and 406, 4008 Pacific Avenue zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition and conversion application. We have speakers at 2 o'clock. 32.3, final report, 5365 Dundas Street West zoning bylaw amendment application. Councilor DeChano, we have speakers at 10 o'clock. 32.4, final report, High Park Apartment Neighborhood Area Urban Design Guidelines. We have speakers at 1:45. 32.5, final report, 25 International Boulevard zoning bylaw amendment application. We have speakers at 10 o'clock. 32.6, final report, 1243 Islington Avenue zoning bylaw amendment application. We have speakers at 10 o'clock. 32.7, final report, 55 and 69 Pelham Avenue city initiated official plan amendment. Speakers at 1:30. 32.8, final report, 135 Plunkett Road, Phase 2 zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision application. Speakers at 1:30. 32.9, final report, 10 Wilby Crescent zoning bylaw amendment application. Speakers at 10:30. 32.10, final report, 5415, 5421, 5429, and 5435 Dundas Street West application. Remove a holding symbol H. Councilor DeChano.
Adopt staff recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Councilor DeChano moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3211, request for interim directions. 150 Sims Road zoning bylaw amendment application to remove the holding symbol H. Councilor Nunziata.
I'll hold the item down.
Councilor Nunziata is holding the item.
Big H.
It's the gas station, no?
3212, final report, 955, 969 Western Road, zoning bylaw amendment application, remove the holding symbol and draft plan of subdivision application. Councilor Nunziata?
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation.
Councilor Nunziata is moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3213, final report, 368 Jane Street, Common Elements Condominium application. We have speakers at 10 a.m. 3214, request for directions report, 3005 Bloor Street West and 14 Humbervale Boulevard, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications. We have speakers at 7 o'clock. That's the meeting for tonight. 3215, request for direction report, 400 the East Mall zoning bylaw amendment application. Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wondered if the clerks have an amendment ready. 3215, 400 East Mall. Sure. Do you want to hold it or me? All right, Councillor Campbell.
3216, request for directions report, 35, 41, 63, 65, and 95 High Park Avenue, and 66 and 102 to 116 Pacific Avenue, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition application. Speakers at 2:15. 3217, request for directions report, 111 Pacific Avenue, 255 Glen Lake Avenue, and 66 Oakmont Road, zoning bylaw amendment application. Hold that for speakers for 2:30. 3218, request for direction report 1001, 1007, 1011, and 1037, the Queensway zoning bylaw amendment application. We have speakers at 11. 3219, request for direction report 2306, St. Clair Avenue West zoning bylaw amendment application. Councilor Nunziata.
Move the staff recommendation.
Councilor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3220, request for directions report 900 and 980 Lansdowne Avenue and 30 Powerhouse Street. I want that street in my ward, Powerhouse Street. Official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application. Councilor Palacio.
Please hold.
Hold it. (3221) status report, Mount Dennis Planning Framework Study, City Initiative Official Plan Amendment. We have speakers at 11. 3222, request for interim direction report 2370 Finch Avenue West Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment application. We have speakers 11:15. 3223, request for interim direction report 1391 Western Road Zoning Bylaw Amendment application. We have speakers at 11:15.
Yeah, just
3224, alterations to a designated heritage property and authority to amend a heritage easement, 30 Powerhouse Street. We have speakers at 11:15.
Mr. Chairman,
Should they be dealt with together?
I don't think that we have any speakers on that one. We can adopt the recommendations.
Well, it says hold for speakers 11:15. We do have speakers? We have speakers. (3225) application for fence exemption 23 Bradley Avenue. We have speakers 11:30. 3226 Donnybrook Lane, that's awesome. 6 Donnybrook Lane, we have speakers 11:30. 3227 application fence exemption 15 Lauren Bruce Drive. Speakers at 11:30. 3228 residential demolition application 95 Bernice Crescent. Councilor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move number 3.
Approve the application to demolish?
You have the motion, right? Yeah. It was sent to you?
Is the Rex here, or are you going off the Rex here? Is it the Rex?
So to approve the application, 3.
Councilor Nunziata? Is it
Yes.
number 3 on our sheets?
Yes.
Yes, number 3 on our sheet. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Councilor Nunziata, moving number 3 on our sheets here. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3229 residential demolition application 2115 Bloor Street West. Got to hold that for speakers at 3. 3230 residential demolition application 19 Harcroft Road. We'll hold that for speakers at 3. 3231 residential demolition application 337, 343, 347, and 349 Queens Drive. Councilor DeGiorgio. Hold. 3232 Boulevard Cafe permit application 165 Geary Avenue. Councilor Palacio.
Please hold it down.
(3233) Boulevard Cafe permit application 1312 St. Clair Avenue West, Nairn Avenue flankage. Councilor Palacio. (3234) traffic control signals Davenport Road and Dovercote Road. Councilor Palacio.
We'll be happy to adopt the recommendations and thank you to staff.
Councilor Palacio is moving the staff recommendations with thanks to staff. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3235 traffic control signals Royark Road and Judson Street. Councilor Casanti, can you move this on my behalf with thanks to staff?
Absolutely. I'm happy to move this for Councillor Grimes with a big thank you to staff.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Traffic control signals Western Road and Dennis Avenue. Councilor Nunziata.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation and also thank you to staff.
Councilor Nunziata moves the recommendation with thanks to staff. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Investigation of temporary traffic control signals Cernooton Road at Hunter Avenue, Councilor Palacio.
I'm going to adopt the staff's recommendations.
Councilor Palacio moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3238, a request to reopen item EY 31.238, all-way stop control at Morrison Street and 4th Street and Morrison Street and 9th Street. That is in my ward, so we need to reopen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I think we just move number and adopt the recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I'm opposed, but I don't need a recorded vote.
3239, proposed pedestrian crossover John Garland Boulevard and Jamestown Crescent, east intersection. Councilor Crisanti.
Mr. Chair, I'll move staff recommendations and also thank staff for this report.
Councilor Crisanti moves the staff recommendation. Thanks to staff. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3240, pedestrian crossover Marine Parade Drive in my ward. Councilor Crisanti, move the staff recommendations, please.
Yes, I'll move staff recommendations.
All
on
in
item
favor? Opposed? Carried. 3241, speed limit reduction, Bala Avenue. Councilor Nunziata.
Yes, I would like to move the staff recommendation.
Councilor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3242, speed limit reduction, Hillvan Drive. Hillvan?
Avon.
Hillvan. Councilor Campbell?
That's mine.
Oh, you know his streets and his word. Councilor, Deputy Mayor Holliday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
I'd like-
Councilor Campbell, do you want to hold that?
You're sure?
Deputy Mayor Holliday.
Questions? It is all downhill. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the staff recommendations to reduce the speed limit.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3243, request to reopen item EY 31.53, speed limit reduction on Superior Avenue, Stanley, Albert Avenue, Cavell Avenue, and Burlington Street in my ward. Motion to reopen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Deputy Mayor Crisanti, can you move the recs before us?
I'll move staff recommendations.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 3244, amendment to the existing speed hump plan, McRoberts Avenue between Kitchener Avenue and Keith Avenue. Councilor Palacio.
Adopt the staff's recommendations.
Councilor Palacio moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3245, speed humps on Trowell Avenue and Keel Street to Kane Avenue. Councilor DeGiorgio.
Number 45. I'd like to adopt the recommendations.
So Councilor George moving the recommendation to adopt the speed humps in his ward. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I think every street in your ward's got speed humps now, right, Councilor DeGiorgio? That's the last street?
Not quite, only ones in school, there's schools
I'm
adjacent to the
opposed.
street.
Yeah. I'm opposed. I don't need it recorded.
We have a whole.
We're gonna reduce it from 50 to 40, that's not a recommendation.
Okay, so I'm gonna hold that. Traffic calming, 46, traffic calming Aerosmith Avenue between Keel Street and Amesbury Drive. Councilor DeGiorgio.
Adopt the staff recommendations, Mr. Chairman. You'll note that there are no speed humps to be installed.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's the only street then. 3247, traffic calming Kane Avenue between Eglinton Avenue West and Rogers Road. Councilor DeGiorgio.
Make it a 2.
Yeah, adopt the staff.
Wow.
Hold it between,
Well-
You may want to install these ones.
Good for you, Counselor.
hold that one, Mr.
You gonna
Chairman.
hold that down?
This is the other side of the school. Trowel is one side and
3248, traffic calming Leicester Avenue between Keel Street and Glenhaven Street. Councilor DeGiorgio.
adopt staff recommendation.
Councilor George moves the staff recommendations. All in favor?
No speed.
Opposed? Carried. 3249, traffic calming on Manitoba Street.
Move staff-
Councilor Crisanti, you move my recommendations, please?
Just moving staff recommendations. for
All in
Councilor
favor?
Grimes.
Opposed? Carried.
I'm opposed, Mr. Chair.
That's to do the poll.
I'm opposed.
To do the poll?
I don't think it could be opposed.
3250, traffic calming on Struthers Street. Councilor Crisanti, could you move the recommendations?
I'll move
before?
staff recommendations for Councilor Grimes.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3251, traffic calming Valermo Drive between Browns Line and Rimbleton. I'm going to hold that down in my word, my name. 3252, request to reopen item traffic calming Rosemont Avenue between Duffer Street and Glenlaw Avenue in Councillor Palaccio's ward. All in favor to reopen? To reopen? Okay, all in favor to reopen? Opposed? Carried. And Councillor Palacio.
I'd like to move the recommendations within my,
Councillor Palaccio's moving the recommendation with a request for recorded vote. All in favor? Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor Doucette, Councillor Palacio, Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Gassanti, Councillor Grimes. What's wrong with this other thing? Councillor Mamalidi, Councillor DeChano, and Councillor Ford opposed. Councillor Campbell and Holliday, that carries.
Naughty, naughty, waiving withholding.
Okay, 3253, traffic concerns Riverview Heights. Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move staff recommendation.
Councillor Ford moves to staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 32, why I got 232, oh, that was 53, sorry. 3254, pay and display Western Road between King Street and Fern Avenue. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves to staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3255, accessible loading zone Victoria Avenue West. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves to staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Rosemary, you okay? 3256, parking regulation amendments, Cabot Court. Councillor DeChano.
Move staff recs, Mr. Chair.
Councillor DeChano moves to staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3257, parking regulation amendment, Edge Hill Road. Councillor Campbell, you got an item on the agenda. That's
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Campbell moves to staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Doesn't mean you can go home.
3258, parking regulation amendment, Nashville Avenue. Councillor DeGiorgio. Councillor George moves to staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3259, parking regulation amendments, Norby Crescent and Sun Row Drive. We got to hold that for speakers at 3:15. Councillor Campbell's word. Wow.
We're still going to be here at 3:15?
3260, parking regulation amendments at Strathburn Boulevard. Councillor Mamalidi.
Chairman, I'm going to move staff recommendations, but this is one of those new schools we talked about in the Works Committee. It's about safety. So I've got another motion that talks about moving forward over the next 6 months or so. Resurfacing, possible speed humps, you know, all that stuff.
You got that?
It's right in front of the school. It's the new St. Basil's on
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it up.
Have a quick look.
Yeah.
Is it reports or is it action?
There's some action there with respect to signs and speed signs and all that stuff.
Can you read that? Can you maybe just read that out, Councillor Mamalidi, what you're doing? Just in a...
Prohibits, well, we're prohibiting stopping on the intersection. There's a part of the intersection we don't want vehicles on. 5 would be the speed humps, to investigate the speed humps. 6 would be raised intersection if possible. That's what that money that we've talked about down at City Hall in front of schools. Can I go up to 7? Can we raise that to 7? Resurfacing, we might have to switch a street with respect to resurfacing, so this becomes a priority over another street, so that we do that all the time with staff. That gives us an ability to do that. 9. There's a crossing guard at the school. St. Simon has moved, so there's a crossing guard at Strathburn and Wallasey right now. Community's asking for the police division to consider moving the crossing guard to Wallasey, or sorry, to Strathburn and Melody. That's number 9.
Okay, the motions are on the screen.
Hang on. Can I vote separately on number 5?
Sure. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Councillor Holliday?
Yeah, I'd like to vote separately on 5 and 6 of the
Okay.
amendment.
So let's do 5 and 6 first. So all in favor of number 5? Opposed? Carried?
Opposed.
So Councillor Holliday in the negative. All in favor of number 6? Opposed? Councillor Holliday. Clause amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
That was easy.
Easier than usual.
Okay, Rosemary, you good? 3261, Parking Regulation Amendment, Sun Road Drive, Councillor Campbell.
Move the staff recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Campbell moves the staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3263, installation and removal of an on-street accessible parking space. 62? Oh. 62, Parking Regulation Amendments, Willard Avenue and Windermere Avenue. Councillor Doucette.
I'll be moving staff recommendations.
Councillor Doucette moves the staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3263, installation and removal of on-street accessible parking spaces, Etobicoke District, June 2018. Delegated, Councillor Palacio.
I'm moving the staff's recommendation.
Councillor Palacio moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3264, parking amendments, Gulliver Road between Keel Street and Conway Road. Councillor DeGiorgio.
Adopt staff recommendation.
Councillor DeGiorgio moves staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3265, update and request to strengthen the tree protection enforcement in Long Branch neighborhood. That is in my ward. I'll hold that down. 3266, Emery Village First Nations Park, Hydro and One negotiations update. Councillor Palacio, or Councillor Mamalidi.
So the good news is, all of the work has paid off. All the questions that you've had have been answered. The three chiefs are delighted. We're gonna have our first Indigenous park in the city in Ward 7, and I'm very happy about that. There is a motion, however. This is delegated authority, so it doesn't have to come back here, and staff can make the necessary agreements and everything they need to do with Hydro and with the community. So there's a motion. Doesn't have to come back here, so we're just taking that out. It's delegated authority to staff.
Are we okay with that?
And if staff just give us the thumbs up, we're okay with it? Nick?
Just not getting a thumbs up.
Just the thumbs up was necessary.
Good morning, councillors. Parks, Forestry, and Recreation continues to work with the Emery Village BIA to advance the First Nations Park project, period.
You good?
It's good with you
Fine
guys?
with that.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the amendment?
Can we get a recorded vote on this? It's the
Okay.
first.
So
Park
this is
in
the
the
amendment, we'll do the amendment first. What do you want, on this one?
No, not on this
Okay,
one.
all in favor of the amendment? Opposed, carried. On the item, recorded vote. Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor Doucette, Councillor Palacio, Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Crisanti, Councillor Grimes, Councillor Holiday, Councillor DeCiano. Yes. Councillor Mamalidi, Councillor Campbell, and Councillor Ford. That's unanimous. Congratulations, Councillor Mamalidi.
Thanks to my colleagues for all their patience with me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can buy us lunch if you like. Write that down, recorded. 3267, Assumption of Service Register Plan 66M 251240 Burnham Mill Place and Londonderry Development. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the staff recommendations of the report.
Deputy Mayor Holiday moves the staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3268, appointments to Business Improvement Area Boards of Management. I have a motion on that. It's up on the screen. Just adding some names. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Is,
Okay, so,
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Councillor Palacio, point of order.
That item is in Ward 17. That's.
I'm sorry?
This item is in my ward.
Which
The one
item?
that we just moved.
And he moved it for you.
What-
You amended to add more names to it.
I amended to move a location in my ward.
Okay, that's
It's
fine.
BIA. You think I'd do that to you, Councillor Palacio?
Recorded
Trust
vote.
me with your life? Okay. Life, not wife. Okay, we have the new items, 3269 to 3285. Motion to put them on the agenda, moved by Councillor DeGiorgio. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. There's a number of them, so please have a look at those. I think we're ready to go to our first item. Right, Rosemary? Is it 10 o'clock? I got 3 minutes. Oh, birthdays and announcements.
Start, there's people here.
Okay. Okay, well, just got 3 minutes before we start our item. Is there any quick releases? Just a sec. Okay, hold on, guys. Any releases that, Councillor DeGiorgio? EY 3227, application for fence exemption. We have speakers on that, Councillor Giorgio. We've got to hold it for speakers. Councillor Doucette.
EY 3271 and EY 31, oh, that should be 3281.
Oh, sorry, one sec, I'm sorry. Councillor Doucette, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, these are the ones we've just added to the agenda. EY 32.71 is a technical amendment from staff.
I think we're just going to hold those down, just
Okay.
because no one's had a chance to look at them yet.
All right.
Any other, Councillor Giorgio? Sorry, 3231. 1 second, 3231. Residential demolition application 337, 343, 347, and 349 Queens Drive. Councillor Crisanti's moving recommendation number 3 to approve the demolition with the conditions. What'd I say?
That's fine.
You guys are in the same age bracket. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Anybody else? Councillor Mamalidi.
3276.
Is that no, Councillor? We're holding those. We just introduced them, so I'm going to hold those down.
It's really simple.
I know, but we're just holding all. No one's had a chance to look at them yet.
Yeah, but it's probably the most simplest thing on the agenda.
Councillor Mamalidi, nothing simple for you, okay? Councillor Ford, you got anything? Come on.
New business?
No, we're not doing new business. Okay, we got 1 minute to go.
I tried, Mr. Chairman.
I'm a rules guy.
Running behind.
10?
They're here.
Okay. Our first item, 32-1, final report, 408 Browns Line zoning bylaw amendment application. We have a speaker on the list, Ruth Mary James. Ms. James? Ms. James not here. Any further speakers to the item? Speakers to the item, last call for speakers. Seeing none. Questions of staff? Seeing none, this is my ward. I'll pass the chair to Councillor Crisanti. 32-1. So this is a new development on Browns Line, one of the first ones happening in a long while. And I guess it'll be a great addition. It's on a very important corner of Horner and Browns Line. Heads into the Alderwood community, and it's a pretty exciting project for the area. There was lots of consultation on it. There's some neighborhood issues that happened before. The developer worked with the people in behind. And I think it's a great result of what's happening today. There's one speaker listed but not here. So with that, I'm going to move the staff recommendations on this item. All in favor? All in favor, recorded vote. Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor Doucette, Councillor Crisanti, Councillor Grimes, Councillor Holiday, Councillor Palacio, Councillor DeChano, Councillor Mamalidi, and Councillor Ford. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Congratulations.
32-3, final report, 5365 Dundas Street West zoning bylaw amendment application.
Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor DeChano.
Yeah, I've just got staff working on a revised motion, so maybe we can
Okay,
come
we'll
back
skip
to that.
over this one?
Yeah, just for 5 minutes.
Well, we have a speaker, which speaks for 5 minutes.
Speaker's here, I'm sure they can wait for
Okay,
the motion.
how long is your motion going to be?
10 minutes.
Okay, so we'll just go over it.
Give the speaker 10
Lots
minutes.
of 10 o'clock items, Mr. Chair.
Okay. 32-5, final report, 25 International Boulevard zoning bylaw amendment application. Are any speakers on 32-5? 32-5, any speakers? Seeing none?
You're okay with parking on this?
Is that yours?
You're okay with the
Councillor Ford?
Ward 2 is 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be adopting staff recommendations on this. This is a new hotel development in Ward 2 with 120 rooms with no opposition from the community. So move forward on that.
Councillor Ford's moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 32-6, final report, 1243 Islington Avenue zoning bylaw amendment application. Are there any speakers on 1243 Islington? No speakers, 1243 Islington, going once? Councillor DeChano.
Adopt staff recommendations, Mr. Chair.
Councillor DeChano's moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3213, final report, 368 Jane Street, Common Elements condominium application. Are there any speakers on 368 Jane Street? 36 Jane Street, 368? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Doucette.
I'll be moving the staff recommendations.
Counselor Stepp, move the staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 32-9, final report. Yes, at 10:30? Okay. 32. Boulevard Cafe permit application 165 Geary Avenue. There's a speaker here, Dustin Jones. Mr. Jones, please come forward, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome, sir. Good morning. You have 5 minutes.
There was 2 different reports for action. The one I'll just read briefly. Municipal licensing and standards received information and concerns for the operational conduct in regards to the issued business license and its compliance with applicable zoning. I just wanted to point out we've already gone through our zoning review. The building permit's closed for change of use, so I'm not sure why this issue is being brought up. I don't know if it has to do with our menus. They didn't really state, but we are operating. We have snacks. We have a menu. The other issue they brought up is the patio. Couple issues I wanted to touch on. The MLS is stating that there's only 1.52 meters of clearance in our drawings, and if you look at the drawings, it clearly shows that we've set back the patio to allow the proper clearance at 2.13 meters. The only area that's an obstruction is a utility pole that's already there. If the patio doesn't go through, there'll still be the exact same obstructions on this sidewalk. And those are the 2 issues I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions? Questions, Councilor Pazio? No? Questions?
Good morning. Thank you for coming down. It's just for clarification purposes. So you had a brewery.
Yes.
That's been in operation for some time.
Yep.
And in the past you have had a number of events, public events there.
Yep.
That you have requested through the clerk to get permission of it.
Correct, yes.
And I did object to it, and I asked you just to talk to the community and to get a petition in terms of their support.
Yep.
We went through that, that's correct?
Yeah, we went through that, and we had amazing support from the community. This whole process is us trying to get our full liquor license. Right now, we hold a different sampling license, which we've been abiding by these rules. And I think there might be confusion.
Yeah, I'm getting to that actually.
Yeah.
So far in terms of the brewery, everything is in terms of and in terms of legalities as it pertains to zoning, you have the licenses that are required.
Correct. Yeah, we have. We've been approved by the city already as a brewery and an eating establishment. That's already been done. We've already.
For the sampling part, and you also have permission from the alcohol and gaming to.
Correct.
To serve.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
So what's before us today is to have that you want the patio license to be able to serve something that should be already allowed through the sampling part with the alcohol and gaming.
Correct. Right now, I can only serve 12 ounces at a time. The AGCO, because they don't speak with the municipality, is approved everything already. When we change into a full liquor license, that's where we need approval for the patio.
Are we referring something similar to what's happening with other breweries in the Junction or Ossington as well? That's part of the new culture?
Yes, yeah.
Have you received any objections from the community as it relates to the serving?
Sorry, like negative feedback from them?
Have you received any objections?
Oh, objections, absolutely none, no.
Okay, so there is an issue now in terms of the restaurant aspect.
Yes.
And have you had any discussions with city staff as it relates to the zoning aspect in terms of having a restaurant that may not be in compliance with the other aspects in terms of the sampling in the brewery?
We've been working with our local health, our local health and food rep and everything's been passed. We're working on adding a few items to the menu just to make sure that we're in compliance with everything. There's been open communication and everything.
With the city staff, have you had discussions on that specific aspect of the restaurant part as it relates to the zoning provisions and compliance with that?
Yes, yeah. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Part of the application and the zoning approval was for it to be an eating establishment. And we are serving food right now. It's just maybe the menu isn't the size that's expected, but we are working on expanding that menu right now. I might be missing the
Yeah,
question.
no, it's, there is a sort of complexity in terms of the zoning provisions as it relates to the other permits that you have. And that's, I think, I'll be asking questions to city staff from that perspective. And I think that there is a bit of a problem there. Now, if you were to have a restaurant component within your business, you may have to go through to seek a variance via committee of adjustment to get that part as well. Did you have any discussions with city staff as it relates to that?
No, we got our eating establishment license. We went in and got approved. That was all
So you have a license for that?
Yeah, I have the license right here. I have
And when was that issued?
This was issued, printed March 14th, 2018. Eating establishment with a license for refreshment.
For how many people?
It's just from the Toronto Municipal and Licensing Standards Office.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Oh, they are here. Okay, is there any further speakers to this item? Seeing none, questions of staff. Councillor Palacio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Schrager. Good to have you here. And you heard the questions that I asked the applicant. And as with regards to this business, I'm just going by memory now in terms of there has been a number of applications coming to this community council. They have permission to have the brewery business there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's in compliance with zoning with...
The manufacturer's use is a permitted use there, so the brewery would be a manufacturing use, yes.
In terms of the sampling part, even though that's under the alcohol and gaming jurisdiction, they have a license for that as well, for the sampling.
They have a license for serving of refreshments, yes.
Is there any concerns that have been brought to your attention in terms of complaints from the community?
I'm not aware of any complaints from the community in regards to this, no.
In terms of the patio license, now I read the report, and within the report we're talking about accessibility there. Are you aware is that most of Gary Avenue, especially in the southern part, we don't have sidewalks, and wherever we have it, between Bartlett, for example, and Dufferin Street, you have literally one single ramp that serves all the commercial establishments, commercial/industrial establishments, where there is literally no sidewalk. And so my question to you is, if we don't have that sense of continuity in terms of public access, why is an issue for this patio license just in the little corner? I'm just trying to understand. I know that there is a hydropole there.
So with respect to the required clear width of 2.17 meter or 2.13 meters, that's a requirement that's in the bylaw. It's from Transportation Services with respect to maintaining a minimum pedestrian clear width. They measure the sidewalk width. So even though there may be a paved portion adjacent to the sidewalk providing more width, the actual measurement is for the sidewalk. This area originally, when built, the sidewalks were for a different type of use. Other areas where we have more of a commercial use, they do have the wider sidewalks by default. So our report's just reflecting the fact that technically speaking, the required clear width as per the bylaw is not provided. Recognizing that there is that paved portion, they are showing a clear width between the curb and the boundary to the patio would meet that clear width, but just our reports reflecting technically what the bylaw states.
Given the location, the physical location, as it relates to other parts of Gary Avenue, as it relates to other business along Ossington and the junction as well, all these breweries tend to be the trend, and there is quite a bit of support from local communities. In your opinion, do you think that providing them with a patio license to serve the patrons is a problem? I'm not referring to the restaurant part, just the sampling part.
I really can't speak to that, Counselor. That's not my jurisdiction or expertise.
That's fair. Do you have any concerns that why the patio license should not be?
So the fundamental concern, Counselor, is the use, and listening to the deputant also explain that they're looking to expand their menu and provide more food options. That would meet the definition of a restaurant, and a restaurant use in this zone is not permitted. So that's our fundamental concern, is not necessarily with the physical configuration of the proposed patio, it's the use of a restaurant is not permitted in this zone.
We are dealing with a patio license application, so I want to just to split those two, because we have two components there.
But it's difficult to permit a patio, which is a...
They have a license though.
Not
He
for,
showed that
they have a license for...
issued this, I think he said March 14.
That's for serving of refreshments. That's a subcategory of that. So the license was for refreshments, which goes with that tasting room, with the, as we understood it, the tasting provisions, not as an actual eating establishment.
Mr. Chairman,
yeah. And part of the challenge, unfortunately, is the city's licensing bylaw and our definitions, and the city's zoning bylaw. Those uses, those definitions don't always align. So the fundamental use, though, of a restaurant there is not allowed under the current zoning bylaw provisions. A variance to that bylaw would be required, perhaps.
So it seems that there is some confusion there in terms of the issuance of that license as it relates to whatever is they are serving there. Would that be fair to say?
So what they were given permission for and what the actual what's occurring there may be two different things. So when they applied for their license for refreshments, it was for the serving of liquid, the serving of the beers. But now that's expanded to serving of foods, and again, the deputant spoke about expanding their menu, their food items. So that's expanding the use into more of a restaurant type of use.
So if I was to approve this license, which I'm very inclined to do that, because I think that's what brings life and vitality to these areas, if there was a condition there that needs to be clarified as it relates to the restaurant part of the, would that be fair to put forward?
I'd like to consult with my colleagues in legal and Toronto Building about that.
Thank you. No further questions.
I just wanted to completely understand the issue with the, I guess it's the utility pole?
Can you pull your mic a little closer?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you fine, Counselor.
So could you just help me understand what the objection was to the utility pole? Like, I'm looking at the plan here, and I just wondered if there's a way that the patio can be configured to make it work.
I would say, Deputy Mayor, that the clearance, the 2.13 clearance, thank you, to that utility pole is really not what we would say a concern. We were identifying, technically speaking, it doesn't comply, but practically speaking, you know, we can't obviously move that utility pole.
Right.
And if the patio was to terminate maybe a little bit shy of the utility pole, then that would be...
And then it would technically meet the bylaw, but I note from the photos and from the diagram that there's actually a concrete planter with a curb between the utility pole and the building, which is actually the adjacent building, so it's not even within the control of the applicant. So although technically it doesn't meet the requirements, practically speaking, even if it did, you can't pass over the concrete curb. So okay, so I think I get you. I think the report says that it technically doesn't meet it, but we have to apply some judgment in this case.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mark. Any further speakers to the item? 3232, any further speakers? Oh, sorry, I've already done that. Councillor Palacio to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to approve. Yeah, I have a motion that to approve the patio license.
Now, staff just got this, right?
Yeah, it's very simple. And I'll speak to the item. These one of the locations, Mr. Chairman, members of council, that's actually doing a wonderful service for the community as a whole in terms of revitalizing, in terms of vibrancy, in terms of bringing people to the community. And this is something that City Council as a whole actually is pretty much in support when it relates to these breweries that my colleague to the left, Councillor and Doucette has in the junction, and mainly on Ossington as well. These are the business that there is a tremendous appetite within the local community to go to these places. Now, I have broad recommendations as it relates to this location in terms of enforcement in the past. And I have attended those functions with city staff from municipal licensing. And I've been there at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, just paying attention to see what's happening, if there was any problems. And this location didn't have, I didn't receive one complaint from the community as a whole. Now, that section of the patio that they're requesting, the way it is an eyesore. It's a place that's collecting literally garbage. It's really awful. And to allow some sort of patio there, that's going to enhance the existing business, that's going to enhance the community as well. And that's a good thing to do. That's a good thing to have one way of saying to this small business, thank you for coming here. Thank you for bringing a good business to the area. And that's a very simple reason for me just to approve this application, because it makes so much sense. The aspect that relates to the restaurant part, and I'm sure that city staff, they're going to follow up on that if there is no compliance, and I'm sure that the property owners will be served with some sort of notice of violation of compliance and to bring them into compliance. But as far as the part is concerned, for the sampling part, I would like to ask for your support, because that's a good thing to do. Thank you.
Any further speakers to the item? Councillor Palacio's motion's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're going to go to 3211. 3211. Bear with me. Request for interim directions, 150 Symes Road, zoning bylaw application to remove the holding. We have a speaker, Catherine Lyons. Good morning, Ms. Lyons. Welcome.
Good morning, sir.
You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
It is a real pleasure for me to be here. 30 years ago, my mother retired as an Etobicoke councilor. Anyway, it hasn't changed a lot, but I'm very happy to be back. I'm here on behalf of Symes Bridge, which is the owner of 150 Symes, and the two tenants there, the Symes, which is an event venue, and Junction Brewery, which is a craft brewery. And the application is to lift a holding zone to allow 2 outdoor patios. I just wanted to I have a couple of photos that I'd like to show you, if I may. This is what the Symes looked like when my client bought it about 5 years ago. And he worked with Heritage Preservation Services and the local councillor and has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in this old industrial building that was formerly owned by the City of Toronto, actually. and this is what it looks like today. The event venue space, if I could just quickly show you. Looks like that. It's just an astounding premises, and it has gone from a utterly abandoned, beautiful heritage industrial building to this wonderful venue in the community. And it's on a site that is between the residential community and the industrial community. So the zoning bylaw that's in place now requires a noise and odor study before a patio would be permitted, an outdoor patio. And that is to ensure that the operation of the industries nearby are not at all interfered with as a result of these patios. So the noise study is done, and it was signed off by the city. Heritage Preservation Services have signed off on the patio, and an odor study was done. The city's peer review commented that the odor study was done in March, and to be honest, it was a chilly day in March, not a likely day that anyone would be on a patio. And the peer reviewer suggested that 4 seasons of odor studies should be completed. I think there's an understanding with your planning staff that 4 seasons for an outdoor patio doesn't make sense, as no one will be out there in the winter, for example. So we went out and had another odor study done, and the worst possible day was chosen, meaning the worst case. It was a hot day, which is the worst case for odors, and it was a Monday, which is the day that most of the industries in the neighborhoods fire up, and so the odors are at their worst. That study concluded, and that was just done in early June. That study concluded that there was no indication that localized fugitive odors from Bank Brothers would cause an odor impact at either of the 2 patios proposed at the 150 Symes building. So while they did find some odors at Bank Brothers, they were within 10 meters of the open doors, and they did not, the conclusion of the expert was that it would not at all impact the 2 outdoor patios that are proposed. So the patios have been very carefully sited to shelter them from the nearby industry. One of them is on the rooftop, and it's set back. You wouldn't be able to see it. And the other one is behind the building at the ground floor. That's the one for the brewery. So one of the things that was important to the city was that we communicate with the nearby industries. Our clients went out and knocked on their doors, spoke to them, sent them letters. No concerns were raised, and in fact, Bank Brothers has written a letter indicating that they're not opposed to the outdoor patios. Our client has made a commitment to meet with the industrial owners in the neighborhood no less than once a year to continue to be sure that they can happily coexist together. Google came to town in June for a week, and this is the venue they booked. It was glorious weather, and they couldn't go outside. There's a real need for a patio here for the 2 patios, and our clients are very excited about it. It's a great addition to these buildings. People they have weddings here. People pose in front of this beautiful industrial facade. They're outside for their wedding photos, but they can't go outside on a patio. So I think that the time is appropriate now. The odor study's in, the noise study's been signed off, Heritage Preservation Services has already signed off, that it would be appropriate to support the removal of the H for the 2 patios in the specific locations. Those are my submissions, unless
Thank
you
you
have
very
questions,
much.
sir.
Right on 5 minutes, bang.
Thank you.
Any questions? I just have a real quick one. So this is the old stockyards, and you said you're in between the business and the residential.
That's
That
correct.
residential's relatively new?
It's an older residential neighborhood behind, a more established neighborhood behind.
But no, Councilor Montana.
Yes, well, I'm going to say the Symes Road takes a turn in 2 different directions, and on one side, what I would call behind, is more established, and then in front is newer.
The new residential, do you know if they had required an odor study for the residential when that was built?
I'm not sure that they did at the time, because there were subsequent concerns that perhaps that would have been a wise idea, and those issues had to be resolved after the fact instead of before the fact, which is what we've done here. We've managed to site these patios where there wouldn't have to be any odor issues. So we've done the odor study, and I don't think one was required for others, and I don't think it's been required for other outdoor patios in the city.
Great.
If this
Thank
is a
you.
new requirement, it would be terrible for the city.
Deputy Mayor Hall, your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for speaking to us. Can you just clarify who are all the tenants in the building?
Yes, there's two tenants. One is a event venue called the Symes, and the other is the Junction Brewery.
What is the split of the building? Can you, like, is the brewery most of it, half of it, less than half?
The
50-50?
brewery is the smaller of the two tenants.
So what does smaller mean then?
I'm going to say it's 25% of the building.
Okay, and is it all one story with, no, it's two stories?
It's 2 stories, yes.
So where's the brewery, at the top or the bottom?
At the bottom, at the back.
At the back, and then so the event space is the rest of it, there's no vacant space?
There's no vacant space.
And it's the event space that wants to have the patio or the brewery?
Both of them do. It's 2 patios, one at the rear at ground level for the brewery, and one up at the second floor roof level set back for the event space.
Okay, so the city retained, it says in the report, the city retained Golder Associates, I guess, to peer review your odor study. And Golder essentially said in a bunch of bullet points that they wanted to see more work done. The first one being the surrounding facilities, not just limited to the Bank Brothers, have the potential to impact the proposed patios at the property. And it goes on with some other things, including some reference to more meteorological conditions, which I think you talked about being more seasons.
Yes.
But other than what you've told us, do you have anything else to say about that? What am I supposed to think if the city's consultant is saying we're not happy with what we've seen?
Well, in my respectful submission, I don't think that the Golder was given the appropriate instructions, because the test in the zoning bylaw is very clear. It's to focus on Glen Scarlett Road, but the odor study did involve, so how odor studies work is that you walk around the neighborhood, and if there is an odor that's detectable, you take measurements. There were not odors detectable other than on Glen Scarlett Road, so that's where the focus of the study was. One of the recommendations, for example, of the city's peer reviewer was that they consider the 2 new breweries that have come to the neighborhood. Well, one of them is the tenant. So obviously there's going to be, there's an awareness that there's a brewery there, and that if you're going to a brewery, I'm assuming you're not objecting to the odor of the suds. Four Seasons, for example, that would make sense if we were proposing a residential neighborhood. What we're proposing is an outdoor patio, sir. So I think what Golder did is it did a typical review based on the introduction of a sensitive use as it's defined under the Environmental Protection Act, as opposed to focusing on the outdoor patio and the specific requirements of the zoning bylaw.
So why not just get the consultants to update the reports and save all the trouble?
Well, we did. The consultant went out to do a June measurement and has submitted it to the city, and that's an update of the report.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much. Any further speakers to the item? Before bringing to committee, any further speakers at 3211? You're good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Members of council.
Seeing none, questions of staff? Seeing none,
I'll take a question.
questions of staff. Councillor Holiday.
So I wanted to digest between the report and the speaker. Is there still outstanding issues with the odor report?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, where we are is, the speaker's quite right, that there was a recent report that was submitted to staff. If you look on page 13 of the staff report, it was the date of the report itself was June 22nd. Also, the communication strategy was submitted on June 27th. That was last week, I think, my memory serves. The challenge that we find is where we are in the cycle of council. If we were a month out from now, we may be very well in a position to say yes. But where we are right now is we are saying that our peer reviewer has not had the opportunity to thoroughly look through the second submission, which is why our recommendation is at this time, we would, if we're pushed to create an answer on it, the answer is we don't have enough information, so we would be forced to say no at this time. So that's why the recommendations are clearly stated that way. It says at this time. Again, if we were a month to 2 months out, we might be in a completely different place. But given where we are in the council cycle and what we thought was the need to report out, this is why it's a request for interim direction. If you remember, I mentioned this to Community Council at our last meeting, that in reaction to the Bill 139 changes, you'll be seeing reports like this about interim directions when council isn't sitting. So that's why the report's in front of you. The basic bottom line is, I think we're okay with the notion of the patios, but our peer review has not had a chance to take a look at the second submission of material today.
Okay.
We believe it's somewhere in the range of 3 weeks out or so. We talked to them yesterday.
So other than that particular odor report and the communication strategy, were there any other issues?
Well, speaking for the planner, but the noise issues have been addressed, and those were the 3 things that were the removal of the H is based on.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I just have one small one. The new residential that was built there recently, when I say new, the last residential was built there, was there OD studies requested for that?
My understanding, there was not, no.
There was not, okay. Thank you. Councilor Nunziata to speak.
Yes, thank you. And just on that question, Mr. Chairman, that new subdivision that was built in front of the stockyards was built and approved for the former city of Toronto. It wasn't, it was before amalgamation. Yes, I do. I have a motion. Put it on the screen to delete the recommendations in the report, and it's on the screen. So just to...
Delete the recommendations?
Yes, and there it's on the screen.
What is that?
Pardon?
Can you just tell us what you're moving?
Okay, so delete the recommendations in the report. And City Council determined that the conditions to remove the holding symbol H have been satisfied in amend zoning bylaw 569-2013 as amended bylaw number 1057-2014 and bylaw, do you want me to read all this out? And to remove the holding symbol H from the lands. And then Etobicoke York Community Council direct the Director of Community Planning, Etobicoke York District, to report directly to the July 23rd City Council meeting with the bills necessary for City Council to remove the holding symbol H. So on this site, Mr. Chairman, this this site was the former, well, Canada Packers was on St. Clair, and then the former City of Toronto. When Canada Packers left, rezoned all of St. Clair as a new subdivision in that area. Now this site here, 150 Symes, was declared surplus years ago. That site was declared surplus as well as Rockcliffe Yards at the same time. This was when the City of Toronto was consolidating other properties and declaring various properties in the city surplus. Now this one for 150 Symes used to be the City of York transfer station. There was an incinerator, and it was left vacant for many years. And once it was declared surplus, thankfully somebody purchased the site. But before the purchase of the site, we declared the building heritage. So one of the conditions of the sale of the property is that that building be retained and repurposed for the heritage use. And as you can see from the pictures, it's amazing what the owner has done to that building and repurposed the whole building. There's an event space where there's weddings, events. The City of Toronto has also had events in there as well, the Junction Brewery. And so there's been millions of dollars have been invested in that site. So now, there's summer is approaching, the hot weather. There's been a request for the patio, for the event space, and for the Junction Brewery. We have been working on it for months now. And we would like to have the patio open for the summer. That's when people want to sit out in the patio. As far as the odor study, well, the stockyards have been there for over 50 years. There's houses that have been built in front of it, behind it. And so to ask for an odor study on an event space for a brewery, I mean, and to delay this application is really, unnecessary. And so I'm asking council to support my my motion, and let's move on. We're trying to revitalize the whole Stockyards area, all of St. Clair. And when a business owner comes in and invests millions of dollars in an area that has been very depressed over the years, for an incinerator and spent all this money to repurpose the building and turn it into something that people want to come to, and then we delay it for a patio license. So I'm asking members of council to please support this. And I know that my community, a lot of residents in the area do attend the event, the space, and they attend, they're part of that, and they love the building. They've been very supportive, and when we had the official opening of the Junction Brewery, the mayor was there as well. He was very impressed on what was done to that building. Thank you.
And Councillor Mamalidi?
Councillor, first of all, I want to commend you for all the work that you've done in that area over the last number of years. Those of us that have been around have actually seen it. You've done a good job with that stuff.
Take a picture of
As much as you upset me down in council sometimes, I do recognize that you do a good job.
Pardon?
But
Didn't hear
in
that.
this particular case, I just have one question, and you touched on it, and that's the smell. We want to put a patio there, and it's going to smell. And then you've got all those jobs associated to that warehouse, right? How are you going to ensure that people aren't going to put pressure on them to close down when they run a very valid and valuable business? Because you know that's going to happen. So how do you stop that from happening? Because that's going to happen. People who are sitting on that patio are going to say, let's shut down this plant because it smells.
Well, the thing is I think that everyone that's going to attend the event space in the brewery quite aware that that's the stockyards. I mean, it's history. Like, if you don't know, if you're going to that event space at where you are, then you shouldn't be there.
So when they come to you and say, because you don't know who's going to visit the patio, and say, well, it smells out here, can you do something about it? Short of legally, you can't really shut down the stockyards.
No, absolutely. And I know there are some residents in the area that would like to. But even when that subdivision was built, former city of Toronto, when people moved in that area, they moved in that area, and we're told by the builder is that, the
Thanks.
stockyards are going to be gone, which wasn't true. And then they moved in when that area became part of my area, and they all started complaining, well, we didn't know. Well, I mean, they've always been there, so I'm sure the city of Toronto, when they went through the planning process, they asked for conditions, or people were aware of what they bought and where they bought.
Councillor Chano, the question.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment.
Can't do that. Councillor Platzer, the question.
Thank you.
Are you new?
Councilor Musial, I know that once again that as Councilor Mamalidi noted, you've done an excellent job there, and I happen to be very familiar with that area as well. As when I used an executive assistant to the former council, we had that area there. So in terms of bringing and what's there, and given that the whole area has become one of the biggest commercial hubs in the west end of the city, and the amount of people that we have in the area, this location has become, literally speaking, like a place for people to go and have a beer, that kind of stuff, and the need for the patio would be fair to say, and to have that assessment.
Yes, I think so, and I mean, it's definitely on the map, and I can tell you that the mayor informed me a few weeks ago that he was at a wedding at this event.
Shame.
He attended a wedding, so, it's very well known, very popular place.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Hall, you have a question, or do you want to speak?
No, I have a question.
A question, Deputy Mayor.
So if somehow between now and council, the 3 weeks, something problematic comes up in the peer review of Golder, will you go back and have another look at the decision?
If something else comes up?
Yeah, if there's a,
Well, I can't see what else could come up, and what is the issue? The stockyards are there, there's odor, and there always has been for years, and people that live in that area and that work in that area are quite aware of it, so what else can come up?
So what I heard from the director was, it sounds like once a bit of time passes and there's a second peer review, because a bunch of things came in late in the last couple of weeks, this all might be fine. And I get that this is the last council meeting, we want to get this stuff straightened out, but if something really bad comes up in the subsequent review of it, would you take a second look?
No, I think that I don't think anything else will come up. To me, I think that the approval for the patio should be approved, and I can't see anything else coming up, considering on what's happening in that area, and I would not reconsider, no.
Okay. Councillor DeCiano to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm totally in favor of Councillor Nunziata's motion. I grew up in the stockyards. First family business was there. If anyone drives through that area, you know that odor. You recognize it. It's ingrained in your brain. The notion that we need to get in the way of the improvements that are happening in the junction here is absurd. Let's just get on with it and continue to make this area of the city an even more exciting place to be and live. And let's approve this thing as soon as possible because we've got a very busy agenda today.
Okay, seeing no further, Councillor Mamali?
I tried to talk to Rosemary because I still am very uncomfortable with what's going to happen, because I know what's going to happen. I think at the very least...
Councillor Mamali, do you have a motion, no?
Yeah, I'd like to move a motion that a legal letter be sent to everybody that owns property there, just outlining the law around the area and how people aren't going to be able to rezone it because of the smell. Some kind of a legal letter, that's all. Just so it actually protects the local councillor in the future, because when she starts getting the complaints that they want this place shut down, she can just present the letter and say, look, everybody's got it. Nobody wants this letter to be handed out? Is that what I'm saying?
No. No.
Nobody wants to do that?
No.
So
No.
you don't care about the legalities of this stuff? No? I do.
Okay, so you're going to move that motion?
Yeah, we don't even...
Okay, Councillor, okay, so
It's not
let's...
going to pass, but it's on record.
Okay, all right, okay, so it's not going to pass. So Councillor Nanzlia is moving her motion. All in favor? Recorded vote. Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor Doucette, Councillor Palacio, Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Crisanti, Councillor Grimes, Deputy Mayor, Councillor DeCiano, Councillor Mamali, Councillor Campbell. In opposition, Councillor Holiday. That carries.
What else is different?
Did you want to vote on your motion?
Mine?
Yeah.
I still think it's...
Okay, Councillor Mamali, do you want to vote on your motion?
Just send out a legal letter, that's it.
Okay, well, again, neither do we, so...
You got to instruct legal to send it, because there's zoning...
And who are you going to send it, and who are you going to send it to?
Send it to every new owner of businesses in that area.
Okay, that's the intent of his motion. Councillor Mamali is to send a letter to everybody in the area. Recorded vote, who's in favor of that? All in favor? All in favor? He hasn't got it prepared, but that's the gist of it. So all in favor? All in favor? Opposed?
How about an intended letter? Did you just vote it down?
Yes.
Yeah, we're done.
Clause amended, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Let's move on. Yes. Okay. Getting, Councillor DeCiano. Okay, we're heading back to 32-3, final report, 5365 Dundas Street West zoning bylaw amendment. We have a speaker, Anthony Homick. Mr. Homick, welcome, sir. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Good morning. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair and members of Community Council. My name is Anthony Homick, and I'm a development manager at Concert Properties, the owner and the applicant for the site at 5365 Dundas Street West, also known as the KIP District. I'm here with my colleagues Kelly Wilson and Jennifer Glassford in support of the application before you. So I do have a copy of our master plan that I'd like to put up. And I've also got copies for everybody that I can hand around if it's hard to see. First of all, thank you for allowing me a few minutes to describe the proposal before you today. Thank you to city staff who've worked tirelessly to prepare this final report. And special thanks to Councillor DeCiano and his Chief of Staff, Mary Campbell, for their unwavering support. For those of you who are not familiar with Concert, we have a long history of developing, owning, and managing purpose-built rental apartments in Ontario and British Columbia. In fact, Concert is very proud to have developed approximately 1/3 of all purpose-built rental suites constructed in the City of Toronto in the last 15 years. We've also been part of the Etobicoke Centre for many years. 1 kilometre east of the subject site at Dundas and Dunbluer Road is Village Gate West, Concert's first master plan community in Ontario, which consists of 948 suites in 5 purpose-built market rental buildings, including one of Concert's retirement living communities known as Tapestry. At Concert, we believe in constructing vibrant, sustainable, and walkable neighborhoods situated close to transit. The KIP district is ideally located less than a 10-minute walk away from the Kipling subway and GO stations, and less than a 5-minute walk away from the new Metrolinx Kipling Mobility Hub that's currently under construction. Concert is wholly owned by pension funds that value the stability of rental housing. However, current regulatory and market conditions have significantly impacted the financial viability of new purpose-built rental homes. Despite this, Concert is committed to constructing one of the 5 proposed buildings at the KIP district as a purpose-built rental apartment building. Phase 1 of our development received minor variance and site plan approval in 2014. It's currently under construction and ahead of schedule, with occupancies commencing next month. This phase includes the construction of Thomas Riley Road and a 1,000 square meter privately owned, publicly accessible POP space along Dundas Street West. This rezoning proposal before you today is for phases 2 and 3 of the KIP district. Phase 2 consists of 2 buildings, a 24-story condominium and a 21-story purpose-built rental building that Concert will own and operate. Both buildings incorporate retail spaces at grade and a much improved pedestrian boulevard along Dundas Street West that implements the high-quality 6 points reconfiguration streetscape design. Phase 2 also proposes a landscape plaza between the buildings and a large central square to the south that includes another 995 square meter POPs. We are proud that our Phase 2 purpose-built rental building was selected as one of the 7 inaugural projects approved for affordable housing through the city's Open Door Affordable Housing Program and Gold Star review process. We are committed to helping address Toronto's affordable housing crisis by delivering 50 2- and 3-bedroom suites in this development that guarantee affordability for 25 years. Phase 3 consists of 36 and 32-story condominiums and a large landscaped open space to the south, below which a subsurface easement will be granted to the TTC for a future potential subway extension. The rezoning proposal before you today simply seeks to redeploy the density approved in 2005, bringing it in alignment with today's urban design principles. One key feature that you will notice when looking at this master plan is the series of interconnected open spaces at grade that converge on a highly programmable central square that can accommodate passive recreation and engaging community events. This master plan design has received the unanimous endorsement of the Design Review Panel on 2 occasions, and it was also honored with the Master Plan Community of the Year Award for North America by the National Association of Home Builders. When complete, the KIP district will be a community of approximately 1,500 homes, a vibrant mix of residential and retail uses, and a very significant amount of landscaped open space. We believe the high-quality architecture and public realm design, which represents a $500 million investment, will be a valuable contribution to Dundas Street West and Etobicoke Centre. We look forward to receiving your approval and commencing construction on phases 2 and 3 as soon as possible. Thank you again for your time, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Memley to question.
You're not with the city anymore?
No, I'm not.
Oh my gosh, when did you leave?
Last November.
Wow.
Time flies.
You were doing public realm with the city.
That's right. Well, planning.
So how, will you tell me one day when you know there's a clear difference between city planning employees and those that work for the private sector?
Councillor
Will you let me
Mamalidi.
know when that happens to you?
I don't have an answer for you.
Oh, thank you. That was my question.
Councillor Campbell, any relevant questions?
I'm gonna. Phone is working. There it is. Okay. Yes. I think I have a relevant question. So there's just under 1,300 parking spaces. How many units in total?
Just shy of 1,500.
1,500. So you get 1,500 units.
Yes.
And 1,300 parking spaces.
That's right.
So there's a shortage. What happens? Why is it not 1 for 1?
So the proposal and our transportation analysis has adopted all of the recommendations of the city's current zoning bylaw 569/2013. So we've incorporated those zoning bylaw standards, and it's also worth noting what I mentioned, that it's a 10-minute walk away to the subway station, a GO station.
What's happened in the other developments along Dundas by the Kipling subway? What were the ratios there? Were they 1 to 1 or less than 1 to 1?
I don't have an answer for you. I can't tell you.
Okay, I'll wait and ask staff that. So is there visitor parking?
There is a significant amount of visitor parking that meets and exceeds the requirements of citywide zoning bylaw 569
What is it,
2013.
is it 5% or is it 10%, or I think it said 5%?
Yeah, approximately 5%, yes.
5%, okay. And where is that parkland going to be? Because understand, this report just landed on our desk like this morning, so. Where's the parkland? Is the parkland close to the tracks, or is it close to Dundas, or in the middle, or?
The parkland or the parking?
Parkland.
If you refer back to the plan.
Oh, here it is here, sorry. Okay, so it's, all of this linear space is right adjacent to the tracks then, basically.
There's three significant open spaces. There's the POPs part of Phase 1 that's up in the northwest corner there.
Right.
And then there's the central open square, which is the POPs, the Phase 2 POPs. And then there is a landscaped open space adjacent to the tracks at the south.
So is this all residential, or is there any mixed use? Is there any retail on the site?
There is retail in the two buildings, the two buildings that front Dundas Street West as part of Phase 2.
D&E?
That's D&E.
D&E, how much retail will be in there? Are we talking, nail salons and dry cleaners?
There's approximately 6,000 square feet between
Not
the two
much.
buildings.
Very little.
It's going to animate the Dundas Street frontage.
Very little retail, okay. So, sorry, what are you proceeding with? What's the first phase of this?
Phase 1 is the northwest corner, Building C.
Building C.
And that's, if you drive by, it's built.
It's built. It's a beautiful thing, okay. All right, I don't have any other questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Holliday, a question.
Thank you, Chair. Can you talk to me a little bit about the noise and vibration mitigation steps you've built into what you're doing? As I noticed that it's right on the rail line, and there's also an easement for a future TTC line.
Yes.
And so that produces vibration. Tell me how that works.
So for Phase 2, which is buildings D and E, we've submitted to the city a noise review. Our consultant's opinion is the fact that Phase 2 is a significant distance away from the rail corridor, that there
Right.
wasn't a need for a vibration study.
Yep.
So we did submit a noise study for Phase 2, which is currently with the city, and a condition that will be incorporated into the Section 37 agreement is that the city's going to peer review that. And we have incorporated, or the consultant's report includes recommendations that will be incorporated into the building envelope, sealable, closable windows, air conditioning, and things like that.
So for A and B though, and is that Phase 3?
Phase 3, A and B, we will be submitting another noise and vibration study to the city that will also be peer reviewed, and that's secured in the Section 37 agreements as well.
How far does the parking garage go beyond A and B towards the tracks?
It goes all the way back to the south property line, but there's a significant slope. The site slopes significantly from Dundas towards the tracks. So the majority of the parking garage at the back of the site is actually above grade, and the subway easement dips below that slightly.
So explain how that works. So if I'm standing on the GO rail corridor, I would see a building wall then, not a landscape. Not that I'm concerned about the view from the tracks, but so I can picture this. It's a wall then.
There is going to be our underground parking garage. You will see a wall from the side of the site, yes.
So then where would a future subway go?
As I mentioned, the subway is going to dip down under the parking garage. So if
okay.
you look at it in a section, the parking garage is like this, and the subway is going to go underneath it.
Underneath it. And how many levels of parking is there?
Currently, it's 2, potentially 3.
Okay, so the subway would have to go down below the third one by the sounds of it.
That's right. And that would all be captured in the easement that we're going to give to the TTC. And also in the zoning bylaw amendment, there's a requirement for a minimum 3-meter separation distance from any potential TTC tunnels.
Got it. And then just last question, D&E on the front side, because we always hear about LRTs and things that might go into the right-of-way instead of a subway. How far does your parking garage go to the face on Dundas Street?
The parking garage goes approximately to the dark line that you can see south of the second row of trees. You can see there's a double row of trees on the streetscaping.
Yeah, like a dotted line?
Yeah, it looks like it's a dashed line
So
on
that's
here.
the face of the building.
That's the face of the building and the extent of the underground.
Okay, and there's nothing below that?
Out in the sidewalk in the public space area?
Right.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Doucette?
Is this where the Dollarama used to be?
No, this used to be Canadian Tire.
Oh, a Canadian Tire, okay. Any of these units going to be affordable?
Yes, we, as I mentioned, we've been approved through the city's open door call for applications. We're going to be delivering 50 affordable units.
It's a fairly big unit, a lot of units. Any childcare going to be on site?
We don't contemplate it at this point. It is a permitted use in the uses in the zoning bylaw amendment, so it's possible.
What about off-leash for dogs?
We are currently proposing an off-leash dogs area and a pet relief area in Phase 3. The exact location still hasn't been determined. There's also a pet relief area in the POPs in Phase 1.
Thank you.
Councilor DeGiorgio, the question.
Yeah, Anthony, I'm looking at page 54 and page 55. If I can just draw your attention there. Just out of curiosity, there's a notion of shared parking anticipated in Phase 2 and Phase 3.
Yes.
So if you look at the visitor parking spaces, the ratio is 0.1 parking space per unit. And then there's a non-residential. And then just below, it says, for purposes of 10A2 of this bylaw, residential visitor parking spaces can be shared with and used to meet the parking requirements for non-residential uses. So there is this notion of shared parking between visitor parking and the commercial parking.
Correct.
Do you have any idea of the signage that will help us accommodate that?
That's something that will be secured through the site plan approval process. We'll put up whatever appropriate signage is required to differentiate the parking and to make sure that people are aware.
Okay, and they need to, somehow the signage needs to secure the relevant parking ratios.
Well, that would be secured through the site plan approval process.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? See, Anthony, I just have one here. The POPs, the privately owned public spaces.
Yes.
Phase 1, which is the C tower's already built, correct?
Correct.
Who's responsible for that POP?
There will be a master shared facilities agreement between all 5 of the buildings. That will speak to the maintenance of the entirety of the site.
So it just won't be the C building looking after the POPs, it'll be all the 5 buildings?
That's right. Everybody will have a proportional, it'll be proportional based on unit sizes and how everybody will have to.
And how do you convey that in the condo docs to these new owners of DE, A, and B?
It's explicitly included in the declaration of purchase, or the agreement of purchase and sale, that explains what it is and how
Not
it's
hidden anywhere?
not hidden anywhere, how it's going to operate, and exactly what it is.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you, Anthony. Questions of staff, Councillor Campbell. You told me you had questions of staff.
One question. I'm curious.
You don't have to.
No, I'm curious. Like, I don't understand how the final report is here yet. This is already completed. How does this? Just explain the process to me a little bit.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So what is it exactly we're approving today? It sounds like the development has already been approved. Section 37 was done in 2005.
Right. So effectively, what's happened is the Phase 1 is underway. It's under construction. There are 4 more buildings that they're coming forward. Was approved in 2005. But as Mr. Homick had explained, what they want to do, and frankly what staff want to do, is change some of the built form issues around that to move the density around. So it does require an amendment of the bylaw. It actually creates a better built form on site because the buildings are, while they're taller, they're also slimmer, the shadows move faster. So it's rearranging the density that exists today that council approved in 2005.
And so I know that we've had, I've asked the question before, I think it was one of Councilor DeGiorgio's developments where there were not an equal number of parking spaces for the number of units. What was commonplace at the other buildings that are over by the Kipling subway in terms of the ratio? Was it a 1-to-1 ratio, or a unit per parking space, or less than a 1-to-1 ratio?
Well, I believe we would have to check specifically if you're interested in individual buildings, but my understanding is that in recognition of the fact that there's subway, there's GO trains, this is part of the Etobicoke Center secondary plan, that there are parking ratios that were lower and also reflect the new thinking under 569/2013, the new citywide zoning bylaw, which has parking ratios that represent different areas. For example, parking ratios downtown are lower than they are out here, and particularly around the subway stations.
So, but does city planning, that being said, it would seem to me, and please comment, that city planning doesn't recognize that this is not a particularly walkable area. Dundas is very wide. There's not a lot on the north side of Dundas. There's not a lot within walking distance. So What would your reply be to that? Because not everybody is just gonna hop on the subway every time they need to go someplace.
Okay, so my reply to that is that with all due respect, Counselor, what you're thinking about is the current situation.
Right.
Try to think about 20 years out, about what that area will look like. The example I would give you is if you would imagine what Yonge and Eglinton would have looked like, say, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and somebody would have said, oh my God, there's like nothing is ever gonna happen here. It takes time to change mindsets. It takes time to change an urban context. That's what the secondary plan is all about. It's about creating things like the KIP district. It's like creating the other buildings that are coming forward around this. I would think that anybody's vision of this street now, if you walk away and then come back in 10 to 15 to 20 years, your mind is just going to go like this. It will be a completely different environment. The streetscape will be changed. Each and every one of these individual applications will be changing the sidewalks, the streetscape. There will be trees. There will be pedestrian environments. There will be bicycling through here. So, again, what you're thinking about
Almost
is
sounds nice.
well, that's the whole intent of putting the secondary plan in place, councillors, to create that kind of environment.
So the last question is, are these buildings required to have chargers for electric cars? Is there any requirement upon the city, or do you know if they've made that sort of provision?
At this point in time, I don't believe it's a mandatory requirement. I know there are some developers who are coming forward and providing some component of that. I don't believe there are any in this particular one.
Is that something that can still be discussed between city planning and the developer?
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. Again, through the chair, I think this is the kind of thing you would resolve through the site plan application for the individual applications, because you would have to take a look at the parking fields under the building and how you'd be able to set up that arrangement. I think it's the kind of thing will emerge as this rolls on.
Good, thank you. Mr. Chair, that's my questions. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Any further questions of staff? Councillor Mammoliti.
I'm sorry, so the streets here, are they city standard streets? Or are they condo, kind of? We picking up garbage and all that there, the public?
They are not meeting the full DIPS requirements for the streets. They are privately owned. They are on top of underground parking garages. They do have 2 full lanes, one in each direction, and then lay-by parking on Tom Riley Road on one side.
They don't meet the DIPS standards?
No.
Is staff recommending this concept?
In this case, yes. This particular site has a site-specific official plan amendment that's from the previous rezoning that says that on this particular site, private roads that have public access easements will be deemed to meet the official plan requirements of public roads. So that decision was made some time ago for this site through the OP.
So how did that decision get made with city staff? Did city staff initially object to that?
I don't know the history from 10 years ago.
I'm just trying to figure this out, because in my area, just coincidentally, at the end of last year, there was a development that was completely opposed by staff because it didn't meet the DIPS standards. And in this case, it's the same planner that's working for the developer now that worked for city staff that said, no, absolutely not, we can't do this.
Okay,
so how is it that in one circumstance, DIPS, you can forgive DIPS, and on another circumstance, you're supporting the issue of them not complying with DIPS?
Okay, I will jump in on this one through you, Mr. Chair. So what Elise is saying is that the approval in 2005 was given by council for private roads with public accessibility over them.
Did staff agree with it?
None of the staff who are here before you today were here in 2005, so we will have to go back and check, and we can get that.
I would love an answer to that question, okay. Because I hope you can appreciate that what happened in the case of Islington and Muir, it was staff who said, absolutely not, we're not supporting this, because it breaks DIPS.
You're quite right, Councillor, but it just wasn't, if you recall, it just wasn't the DIPS. The DIPS was one issue. It was the built form, it was the building setbacks, it was the width of the lots. There was a whole range of issues around that Islington proposal. DIPS was a large part of it. It absolutely was. So yes, Councillor, if you're interested in that.
If staff were okay with breaking the DIPS policy back in 2005.
The other thing is, Councillor, I will check as well, but my recollection is DIPS came in around 2007, 2008, because I was a manager in North York at the time, so this may predate DIPS, but we will get that information for you.
I'm just flabbergasted that staff would be okay with breaking dips even today.
Okay, he's gonna give you the answer.
When there's so many developers that have said that staff are absolutely never supporting breaking the dips policy. But yet on this one, we are.
He's gonna check it out.
Let me be clear, Counselor. If we had our druthers, we would not do this in the way it was done. But it was council that did it in 2005 as a public road, as a private road with public access easements. So we don't have the ability to go back and undo that decision. If we were redoing that decision today, I don't believe we would do that decision.
It's not the decision in 2005, it's the decision today. You're still supporting it.
Well, it's under construction, Counselor, and it's a right that they have in hand. We typically don't go and undo people's rights in hand unless they ask for it.
All right, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying that
Okay.
there's a lot of developers that are upset that staff are not, they don't budge around dips.
Okay,
And
any
when we
further
see these
questions?
applications go through, it's
Huh?
no wonder they get frustrated.
No further questions? Okay, thank you. I forgot that. Is there any further speakers to the item?
No.
Seeing none. Councilor DeChano to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, finally. Okay, very, very happy this,
Do you have a motion?
I do. I have two very long motions. Motion 1A has been worked on diligently with my office, city planning, and the applicant. It's 2 pages long. It's, you want to go with 1B first? Let's do 1A, motion 1A. And it's, should I be reading all these out? It's 4 pages. Motion 1A, again, speaks to basically definitions within the report with respect to height, putting a number on the residential units that are permitted, and basically talking about setbacks as well. That is motion 1A. Staff do agree with this, as they've been working diligently with my office and the applicant. And then motion 1B basically speaks to construction staging areas for the applicant on a section of the POP that exists today. So I'm hoping, I'm glad that, I want to thank staff, the office, the applicant for working, I don't know how many meetings on this particular site over the last 4 years, but I'm happy to see that Building C has been built. It looks beautiful, and as part of the improvements of Dundas Street coming along, I think we're all going to be happy to see these 2 new buildings come forward. So I hope everyone can support those 2 motions.
Thank you, Councilor DeChano. Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, Councilor DeChano's motions are on the screen, so we'll take, is it 1A, 1B?
1A, 1B.
Take 1A, all in favor? Opposed, carried. On 1B, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Clause amended, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay. 9? Just before we go to 9, I'd like to recognize a special guest we have, Mr. Paul Bedford, our former Chief Planner of City of Toronto, hiding there in the second row. Welcome, Paul. Okay, 32-9, final report, 10 will be present, zoning bylaw amendment application. We have a number of speakers. Heather Tremaine. Ms. Tremaine, 32-9. Is Heather here? Oh, she's here, yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, welcome, thank you for your patience. You have 5 minutes, thank you.
Hey, thank you. The planning report is before you, so I wanted to speak on behalf of the application. We are the developer of the project.
Put that up just a little bit for us.
Sure.
Yank it right up, pull it right up there, yeah.
Okay. Options for Homes is the developer of the project, and we're very excited to be coming to Weston. We've been looking at this neighborhood for quite some time and really see the potential of this neighborhood, and we know it's a priority neighborhood within the city. We see that it's already a vibrant community, and it's our hope that we'll be able to improve, bring some assets to the community and its revitalization. I think, as you'll see in the application before you, the proposal is for 233 units of affordable ownership. I won't go into the details of the kind of planning of the building, but it is, it's a affordable ownership project. So the idea is that we want to provide opportunities for people who live in that community to become owners, to have security of tenure, to be able to grow and age in their community. The building is largely a family-oriented building. The majority of the units are 2 and 3 bedroom. I think we've probably exceeded any other building in the city of Toronto in terms of the number of 3-bedroom units that we're providing. It's also going to be a kind of smoke-less building, so we have policies that will kind of address the kind of consumption of cannabis in the building, and indeed really focused on that kind of community building and the family building. And one of the things I think that we will bring to this community, we've worked in the Junction, we've worked in the distillery, we've often been kind of the early developers into a new community, and it's our hope that we will also, that this building will be the start of some additional development in that community. We know that there's an artscape building with Rockport, a rental building, but we know that we are often, as someone described us, the kind of the Starbucks when they arrive and start to create the energy of revitalization, and that's what our hope is to do on this project. One of the parts of the project is that the idea is to turn what was a kind of existing piece of road into a parkland, again, to deliver more assets to the community. The closing of the road, an opening of a park that will serve not only this building, but the larger community, and also in the longer term provide access down to the river. So that's really what I wanted to say, is that it is really our desire to kind of to enter into the community and be good neighbors and bring assets to the community, including a number of people who will kind of utilize the retail along Western Road and be part of the revitalization of the community. So thank you.
Heather, 1 sec, I'm sorry. Question by the Deputy Mayor.
Thanks for speaking to us. You said something that intrigued me. You said something about smoke-less policies, and I guess in anticipation of cannabis. Could you tell me a little more about it? It's not in the report, so I'm interested.
Yeah, in the condo bylaws, what we've done is we've said that the building will be smokeless, so you can, people will be able to use e-cigarettes in the building, or they can vape cannabis, but they can't smoke it. So the idea is we want to reduce the amount of smoke migration between units.
Sure.
And in general, in the public space of a building, you can't smoke. But in your units themselves, people won't be able to smoke in a conventional way.
What about tobacco? Same?
Tobacco, they'll use e-cigarettes. So it's a less kind of invasive form of smoking. Really.
And so that goes into the condo declaration?
Yeah, so people know right up front that's what they're purchasing.
Right. And have you seen this elsewhere? I'm intrigued by it, and that's why I just wanted.
We are, I'd say, leaders on this one.
Okay.
Nobody else has done this yet, but we're trying to get ahead of the legislation that's coming down the pipe.
Got it.
Yeah.
And can people smoke tobacco or other substances outdoors, like on a balcony or
No.
that's oh.
No. Yeah.
Oh, so that's common element, I guess.
It's not common element, but in the same way as your unit is not a common element. So there are restrictions in the private spaces in the building.
Okay, so if you wanted to smoke traditional tobacco or cannabis by burning it,
You can't do that on your balcony in this building.
so you have to leave the property.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But we have a wait list of 7,000 people.
Got it.
And 90% of the people were interested in this, actually. And we now have other projects that are completing, and people would like us to retroactively change the bylaws, which we can't do, so.
Would you be agreeable to, at some point in time, if you remember, to send me the wording of how you've put that, just as a matter of interest, and
we'd
if
be
you could
happy to
email
share
it out,
that.
that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Campbell, a question.
If they want to know where to smoke, they just have to ask the local councillor. Just wondering, there was at the public meeting, they made commentary about there not being adequate parking spaces, and I see that, and staff also, I think, or in the report, it makes reference to it not meeting the standards or the prior requirements for parking. And so you've said there's a lot of families that'll be in this building because of the size of the units. Why are there 53 units that will be without parking spaces?
We have a so we do have parking for all the 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. We don't necessarily have parking for all the 1 bedrooms, but there is great transit in that area. I mean,
Why did you opt to not have more parking?
We've actually done a survey of our purchasers, so we've completed 10 projects across the GTA, and the ratio that we're using here is consistent with the ratio in other buildings, and that's consistent with the kind of percentage of purchasers who want parking.
Do you have other buildings in sort of suburban areas, or mostly?
We do, absolutely. We have one in Scarborough on Danforth Road in Eglinton. That's probably our most recent building, and it has a very similar parking ratio.
Okay. And, okay.
A lot of people make the choice to, one of the things that they're willing to give up to become a homeowner is the kind of private use of a car, and they're much more willing to use public transit.
So, and is this a condominium?
It is,
It's a condominium, okay. Okay, that's all, thank you.
Councilor Mamali, the question.
So this is a condo.
Yes.
Has the province changed the condominium, I think it's called the Condominium Act still, to reflect what you're advertising, that marijuana can't be smoked on the balconies?
No, they haven't changed that yet.
So it's great to advertise that. Everybody that wants to buy is going to buy because they feel that that's a good thing to have. But how are you going to enforce it if provincially in the act it doesn't address it?
I mean, these are the condo bylaws, right? Which you can enforce condo bylaws. Like if you have a dog and you can't have a dog in your building, then you're fined by your.
But you have to catch the person
No,
doing
absolutely.
whatever they're doing. So
Absolutely.
if somebody is actually smoking on a balcony, how are you going to get rid of that person, and how long is it going to take?
I mean, initially, the people would be fined for an infraction, and then presumably over the longer term there can be other actions taken by the condominium corp, and there will also be some presumably moral suasion involved in that. I mean, people when they purchase, they're essentially agreeing to live by those rules. I mean, it's not going to be a perfect system, that's for certain.
No, I just noticed that you're advertising that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
The worst thing I think sometimes is to advertise something that is unenforceable, because the expectations that come out of it by the homeowners are unrealistic, in my view, right? And you just answered the question. There hasn't been any amendments to the act that deals with this at all. So all it takes is an appeal. There is an appeal mechanism for anybody in a condo that doesn't agree with the condo board now. All it would take is that. I just think we're confusing everybody. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
I'll speak to that, by the way.
Okay, seeing no further questions, thank you. Our next speaker, Marion O'Sullivan, Weston Village BIA. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
You have 5 minutes.
I'm here, as you said, representing the board of the Weston Village BIA and the 200-member businesses we serve. To say that Weston needs density is an understatement, and our businesses definitely would do a whole lot better if we had more density. They need more density in order to survive and flourish, and this is particularly true for the businesses south of Lawrence in the area where the Humber will be located. Proximity to the Up Express will obviously be one of the reasons people will decide to buy in the Humber, and with more people walking past the stores in that area to the Up Express, it can be have nothing but a positive effect on those businesses. In addition, we were really happy to hear that there are going to be a lot of family-sized units. We're hoping that that will mean that there'll be a greater diversity in store mix, stores that will sort of serve the various different age groups. That is not the case right now. We have a lot of hairdressing salons, nail salons, and we hope we can do better than that in the long run. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, thank you very much. Our next speaker, Dave Bennett, Weston Village Residents Association. Mr. Bennett. Good morning, sir. Welcome. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. And as you mentioned, I'm the chair of the Weston Village Residents Association, and our association supports the options for home proposal at 10 Wilby Crescent for a number of reasons. The skyrocketing Toronto housing market has meant that new home owners have to wait even longer before being able to purchase their first home. Weston was the second poorest area in Ontario in 2008. An Options for Home nonprofit financial formula will help our Weston residents obtain home ownership. Also, financial assisted home ownership models like this application have a great track record in Weston. 5 years ago, Habitat for Humanity opened and operate a place 5 streets away at 1500 Weston Road, and this site is a positive addition to our community, and it continues to thrive today. Currently, this site is an eyesore. It currently has a 2-story industrial warehouse building on a dead-end crescent. Even before this site was abandoned for this proposal, this location was a dumping ground for garbage, and because it was out of sight, other questionable activity was happening late at night, which is not positive for a family-based community. This new development eliminates that dead-end crescent by extending the greenery from the Humber, and this proposal also has a request in it to create access from this location to the Humber Trail below, which is a great benefit for our community. The proposed cul-de-sac also automatically creates a drop-off area for the new building, while allowing snow plows to complete the routes without backing up, which is always dangerous, as we know. Also, the new proposed sidewalk to Weston makes this new development a great walkable destination. And the podium design of the building will help mediate winds coming off the tall banks of the Humber River. This site is only 450 meters from our new Weston Express station. And I believe these new residents will support our Up Express residents ridership numbers. Residents at 10 Wilby Crescent could arrive at the Air Canada Centre faster than driving a car. That's remarkable. The proposed bedroom unit ratio is also very family orientated, which is in support of our family-based Weston community. We're proud to support this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Questions? Seeing none, thank you. Any further speakers to the item before bringing to committee? Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Campbell. Just as long as you want. You have 5 minutes.
Regard to parkland? Question about the parkland dedication. So this site, it's recommended cash in lieu as opposed to some space set aside for parkland?
No, so the Section 37 agreements, payments are going to be going directly to converting the redundant stretch of Hickory Tree Road to parkland conditions. Then there'll be the separate parkland requirement, which is hopefully going to be used. The long-term gain is to create access to the Humber recreational trail.
Okay. So would this site be big enough for, if this site was not right next to the Humber, obviously that's great with the access to the Humber River, would we otherwise be asking for space on the site, or is it too small for that?
I think there would be a parkland requirement, yes.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you. Councillor Nunziata to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will support the recommendations, but I would like to, I'm adding a 6th recommendation. We can put it on the screen. To request that the General Manager, Parks, Forestry and Recreation submit a formal request to Transportation Services for the stop-up and closure of the portion of Hickory Tree Road that is located beyond the proposed cul-de-sac for transfer to Parks, Forestry and Recreation. Yeah, that's a request. So, Mr. Chairman, members of council, I do support this application, and just to give you a history of it, and I want to also acknowledge Laura Alderson that's here as well in the council chambers, and Paul Bedford. this application actually came in and we worked on it since 2013. Actually before that, when the original application came in. And the original application came in, we had a community meeting, and the community was in full support of the application at the time. And then it was delayed for a while, and then Options for Homes came forward with a revised application. And this is an area where we, as well, a few years ago, did a charrette, in Weston, and ULI was involved in it. Paul Bedford was involved in it. The Residents Association, the BIA was involved in it, and at that time we looked at revitalization of Weston, in particular, for the community to support intensification in the area, and as well because of the GO and the Up Express that had we just approved a stop at Weston and Lawrence. We were all in support of intensification in the area, and Options for Homes, even though it was delayed for a while, when they came forward with their revised application, Wilby Crescent has been an area, Wilby Crescent in particular, there's been a vacant vacant building there for a number of years. And what that site was used for is dumping of garbage, derelict vehicles, and it was just an eyesore. And residents that live at Hickory Tree Road, 1 and 3 Hickory Tree Road, constantly called my office complaining about that site because it was a dead-end street and people were there, there was a lot of illegal activities going on. And so when Options for Homes came forward and purchased the site, and wanted to redevelop that site, of course everyone in the community was in full support of it, to revitalize the area. And as Mary mentioned with the BIA, we are looking, and we have a number of development applications coming in Weston that we're very excited about. So this site, as I mentioned, a lot of work was put into this application, and Options for Homes actually worked with the planning staff, and thank you to the planning staff that worked on this application. I know that there was a lot of work and negotiations that we had to do with 1 and 3 Hickory Tree Road, and we met with the board, and I'm very pleased that it's here for approval, and finally we can get this site developed and maybe revitalize the whole street, Wilby Crescent, which is an eyesore as well with the vacant buildings that we have on that site. So I ask members of council to support this application. There's a lot more development applications coming in my ward, not only in Weston, Mount Dennis, and St. Clair, and I'm really excited about the interest that developers are shown in Ward 11.
Thank you, Councilor Nunziata. Councilor Memley, you speak.
So, with all due respect to the local councillor, because I know she does her best, and to any planners, I'm not going to support the application. But I'm not going to support it for a much larger reason. And trust me, I know Options to Homes very well, and they do a great job. So I don't want to tarnish their reputation at all. This to me is of a policy, and I can't support the suburbs continually taking on all the social housing units and affordable housing units to a degree where it is incredibly more than the downtown part of the city. I'm seeing a trend going on, and I don't like it. I don't like the fact that poverty breeds poverty, and I don't like the fact that we're not seeing this as a city. I personally think we need to put a limit on the amount of social housing and affordable housing in wards that have already got it and have already accepted it to that large degree, and start pushing for the private sector to come in and for income to come into communities, because that's really the only way that that communities thrive, is through income. And if we're just loading our communities up with people on social assistance, and those that may not have the opportunity to be working, It doesn't help local communities if you're not spending money in that local community. And so when you overburden a community with this kind of housing, it hurts communities. And I wrote the affordable housing policy in the City of Toronto, and I argued this point back then, that we can't be doing this. Downtown Toronto got it right when they realized that it was an issue in Regent Park and other areas of the city, and it wasn't working for them economically. So they agreed to build more condos, more income units, so people that are buying are working and making salaries and spending their money in their local pockets. But what's happened since then is it seems that there's a push to put this in the suburbs of the City of Toronto. And that to me scares me. And nobody wants to talk about this except me. And let's be real. Weston Road is, I grew up in that area. I grew up at Weston Road and Shepherd. I grew up in that area. And I don't necessarily like what's going on a part of Weston Road. And as much as the local councillor supports some of these she doesn't. But at the end of the day, if you're just putting through affordable housing and social housing in your neighborhood, the problems are going to come home to roost. Social problems will come home to roost. We're seeing it everywhere. Poverty breeds poverty, and we've got to stop the encouragement of it in some pockets of the city and encourage it in areas that don't have it. The areas that don't have it are the first ones to say, this is wonderful, great news. They're the first ones to advocate for affordable housing. But let's put it in someone else's backyard, right? Let's not put it in ours. And the package that I wrote a few years ago had that built in, that council would strive to put affordable housing in every ward in the city and not just one or two of them. And it seems to me that we're not adhering to that policy. So I'm not going to support it for the reasons I've outlined, not because I don't support affordable housing, not because I don't support the local councillor or Options for Homes, which I think is a great organization, but I think everybody agrees that there needs to be a limit in communities if they've got their fair share of it already.
Councillor Campbell?
Thank you. Well, it's a point well taken by Councillor Mamalita, but I fundamentally disagree with it. This is an area where the residents have come forward and they've said that this was a dilapidated, derelict area where things were happening that they didn't care to be happening. It's been underdeveloped. This is an infusion of capital and money. And the reality of the situation in Toronto is that it is unaffordable. Here's 233 units coming to a neighborhood where it's close to transit, it's close to the local shops are very appreciative of the fact that there's going to be some people coming and patronizing their businesses, and try to find a decent property, a decent rental or condominium property that's affordable in Toronto. I mean, it's very, very difficult. Prices are skyrocketing. You pay a fortune for a postage size place downtown, and frankly, the suburbs are getting to be almost as bad. So. Aside from the fact that there's inadequate parking, I welcome the development, and this is going to be a very nice development right by the Humber River, right by Parkland. And the other thing is about affordable. What is affordable? Affordable doesn't mean poverty. Affordable doesn't mean that you're out of work and you're on social assistance. This is not Toronto community housing. This is affordable housing. These are people with jobs. These are people that are nurses. They might be working in hospitals. They could be working in banks. These are employed people. These are employed people who can't afford the high ticket prices of downtown. And so for that reason, I'm going to support the development.
Well said, Councillor Campbell. Thank you. Councillor Doucette to speak.
I will be very quick. I am also supporting this. These affordable condos are brilliant. I'm actually working with some developers in my ward trying to get affordable condominiums as well. As Councillor Campbell says, it is people who just can't get that down payment but want to live in a beautiful neighborhood. Heck, I love the Humber River. Wonder why. It's a great location, and yes, I am always trying to get affordable units into my ward because a lot of people can't afford to buy condos these days, forget rent in some areas. I think this is an excellent idea. I think it's a great project, and I thank the local city councillor for pursuing this and keeping it and getting it on track. and very, very happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Doucette. Seeing no further speakers, Councillor Nunziata, his motion, she's added number 6. We'll vote on that separately. Recorded vote's been requested. Number 6 is on the screen. All in favor? Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor Doucette, Councillor Palacio, Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Crisanti, Councillor Grimes, Deputy Mayor Holliday, Councillor DeCiano, Councillor Mamalidi, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Ford, that's unanimous. On 1 through 5, and clause amended. All in favor? Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor Doucette, Councillor Palacio, Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Crisanti, Councillor Grimes, Deputy Mayor Holliday, Councillor DeCiano, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Ford, opposed, Councillor Mamalidi, that carries. Okay, moving right along. No. 3218, request for direction report, 1001, 107, 1011, and 1037, the Queensway zoning bylaw amendment application. Are there any speakers on the item? Any speakers on the item? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor DeCiano, the floor is yours.
Adopt staff recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Councillor DeCiano moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Palazzo, you had a quick release you wanted to look at, and I'd be willing to entertain that you held. What is it? Please tell me what it is.
20, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, 20?
Yeah, 3220.
Okay, 1 second, 3220. And what's your request?
Yeah, I have a recommendation, and I have spoken to city staff as well, and to the developer, and it seems like we are all in support of that. And there is one deputant in the room.
Sorry,
We can
3220? Are there speakers on 3220? No, no speakers. So would you just quick release?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's a quick release.
Oh, just a sec. So this is an amendment?
Well, it's an amendment to city's recommendations, and the recommendation is on recommendation number 2. In essence, what it does is that the planning staff be requested to convene a meeting with the local city council and the developer, if appropriate, the week of July the 16th, 2018, to find a resolution to the angular plane issues before the July council meeting. And B, city council direct planning staff to expedite the negotiation process and bring forward a final report at the first Etobicoke Community Council should the application not be appealed to the LPAT during the break council meeting scheduled between July to December 2018. So in essence, the recommendation is calling to continue the negotiating aspect. This has been going on for the last 4 years, and I think these recommendations will somehow bring everyone together.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Sorry. Question of the mover, Councillor Doucette.
Sorry, Councillor, we just obviously received the supplementary report today. So basically, this is what you are moving, the supplementary report. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, with an amendment to recommendation number 2.
And sorry, that amendment is to continue
the negotiating
negotiations
aspect, yeah.
and working with city staff with the proponent. Is that
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor, the Director of Planning is looking at me funny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's, with regards to Councillor Palacio's first recommendation, absolutely. We have no issue with that. The second recommendation is, I'd like to get a clarification if I can. So the recommendation is to find a resolution to the angular plane issue before the July City Council meeting. The angular plane is encoded in the zoning bylaw.
Okay, so Mr. Cresswell, I'm going to stop you there. It's not going to be quick, so can you work with Mr. Cresswell to see if you can get something worked out? Okay, so just going to hold it down. You guys can work that out, and we'll come back to it.
That's fine.
Okay, 3221, status report, Mount Dennis Planning Framework Study, City Initiative Official Plan Amendment. Are there any speakers on Mount Dennis Planning Framework?
Mr. Chairman, if I may...
Point of order?
Yeah, point of order. For EY 3221, the Mount Dennis Planning Framework Study, and as well as EY 3223 which is actually part of the Mount Dennis. Maybe we can have, because the deputants that are here are to speak on both of them, so maybe we can
So
have.
21 and 23 deal together? All in
Yes.
favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any speakers on 21? Seeing none, EY 20...
No, there is. We're on the planning study now, Simon.
Okay. So you're here to speak on 21?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, or good morning still. Welcome, and thank you for your patience, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Simon Chamberlain, I'm Secretary of the
I'm sorry,
Mount Dennis.
are you going to speak to 23 also?
Yes.
So you're going to do it together?
Yes.
Okay, so he's speaking to 21 and 23 for my colleagues. Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes. I'll reset your time.
Thank you. So I'm Simon Chamberlain. I'm Secretary of the Mount Dennis Community Association. We are strongly in support of the Mount Dennis planning study and anxious to see it go ahead. So we're just urging that you process that as quickly as possible. The second thing, the more contentious issue, is item 23, the gas station proposal. And our association has some serious problems with that proposal. And I just want to start with flagging the issue about the timing and the fact that it's ending up not being able to be dealt with by City Council in a timely fashion, even though, because it didn't reach the planning department in any form until the 13th of April. It wasn't a completed application until the 11th of May. And here we are, less than 2 months later, and unless it gets approved by you today, it ends up being referred on to the LPAT if the applicant wishes to do that. There's a serious problem in terms of the sort of how the system is working. If in a year when council has an election, that kind of an issue can happen, and any opportunity to have proper public debate and on an issue like that can be bypassed. So I wanted to flag that as a general issue. Specifically, we're in full support of the planner's recommendations on this, and we're hoping that you will approve them as written. The issues that the planners have flagged, including the appropriateness of the project in this location. This is supposed to be an employment district. The number of employees on this site is going to drop noticeably once it becomes a gas station. Right now is 3 small restaurants. In terms of the traffic impacts, this is a busy intersection that is often crowded and problematic. One aspect about traffic that has not been looked at all relates to the city's Vision Zero policy. This is a very busy pedestrian intersection with people crossing in all directions. You've got 2 very busy bus lines intersecting there, the Western bus and the Jane bus, and the effect of widening both roads in this location, which is part of what the application involves, is going to be, we think, problematic from a pedestrian safety Vision Zero perspective. As quite aside from problems with vehicular traffic, which is already often stacked up, particularly during rush hours to make left turns. We also agree with the planners' reservations about the aesthetics of the design proposal, which essentially will present a blank wall to the intersection, and certainly with the loss of trees and green space on site. It certainly looks to us as though it's a very constrained site and one that seems inappropriate for such an activity. It's hard to even see a justification for building a gas station in this particular location. We had a huge new gas station built further south in Mount Dennis, or just on Black Creek Drive beside the No Frills store. That has been, that is very well used. There's another gas station just less than a kilometer north of this. It's hard to see a need for it, and it's hard to see it as being the inappropriate use. And the only comments we've ever had from other residents since it came to light a few weeks ago have been negative ones. That's essentially, so please approve your planner's report recommendations.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Johnny Dibb. You're speaking on 23 for my colleague's information. Mr. Dibb, welcome, sir. Good morning.
Thank you.
You have 5 minutes.
So I'm not going to repeat what the first deputant said. I'm just going to say that I'm also in favor of the recommendations that staff put forward. And I want to remind councillors that in general, when there's an application to build new gas stations, it's very important to look at the best land use of any given land. In this specific case, the employment we estimate is going to drop. It's not going to increase, even though this this land is designated for employment. There's in fact 2 gas stations less than 1 kilometer up the road on Jane Street, and another gas station exactly 1 kilometer up the road on Weston Road. So the need for gas stations in Mount Dennis is not really there. The other technical point is that the proposed amendment, the proposed zoning amendment and development is not likely to increase city revenue through property taxes either. When you look at the current property taxes paid on the property and compare it to property taxes paid on gas stations in the area. And that's it.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, thank you very much. Next speaker, Nicole Sampagnia. Nicole? Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Nicole Samponia. I'm from Evans Planning, Inc. on behalf of the owner. We've received and reviewed the comments from staff and the external agencies. We know we have some technical comments to address. We do look forward to working with staff and the community on this application. I do support the recommendations of staff, and hopefully we can get a community meeting set up and work with the community on addressing some issues. Thank you.
Questions? See none, thank you very much. Are there any further speakers to 32.21 or 32.23? Mr. Bedford, sir. Welcome.
Good morning. Nice to see you all again. I'm just here very briefly to strongly support the Mount Dennis planning study. I think it's long overdue. As you all know, with the crosstown about to be completed in 3-4 years, that area is going to experience enormous future change. And I think this is a great opportunity to be proactive and get ahead of the game, figure out what the community would like to see in that area. The other thing I just wanted you to be aware of, and Councillor Annunziata and I have talked about this, since I retired from the city, one of the things I've been doing is working with the Urban Land Institute in the Toronto chapter, and working with different communities at their request to bring city building leaders in to do a vision and action plan exercise along with the planning department. We've done 2 of them in the past, Dundas, Bloor West, and last year was Main and Danforth, very, very successful. And this year, Urban Land Institute has suggested that Mount Dennis is that area that they'd like to focus on. So I just want you to be aware of that, and this is a chance to really bring a lot of additional free resources into that community and help that study.
Thank you, Mr. Bedford. Questions? Seeing none? Any further speakers? Seeing none. Questions of staff?
There's somebody else there.
Okay, Councillor Annunziata. Okay. Okay, seeing no further speakers. Questions of staff? Councillor Annunziata? Yes, sir.
Where's Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're outside having a conversation with Councillor Palacio on the previous item. We hadn't thought that this would come up this quickly, so
Well,
we're
I've got
trying
the
to
fastest
resolve
chair in
this
the
work.
west here, Mr. Cresswell.
Apparently so.
Okay, so can we just hold this down for 1 second, okay?
Yeah, okay, all right, okay.
Okay. 32.24, alteration of designated heritage property and authority to amend a heritage easement. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, 32.22, request for interim director's report, 2370 Finch Avenue West, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application in Ward 7. Are there any speakers to the item? Any speakers to the item on 2370 Finch Avenue West? Seeing none, questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Mammoliti.
I'll move staff recommendations.
Councilor Mammoliti moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3224, alteration to the designated heritage property and authority to amend the heritage easement 30 Powerhouse Street. We have a speaker, Mr. David Eckler. Good morning, Mr. Eckler.
Hello. I'm wondering if we should wait till Councilor Palacio comes back.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you, sir.
Well, what time do we break for lunch, 12?
Okay. Let's go to application for fence exemption 23 Bradley Avenue. Are there speakers on 25 Bradley Avenue? Fence exemption? Seeing none, questions of staff? Seeing none, Councilor Doucette.
I am going to be moving receipt of this report.
Okay, Councilor Doucette is moving receipt of the report. Any further speakers? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3226, application for fence exemption 6 Donnybrook Lane. We have a speaker, Matthew Curtis. Mr. Curtis, good morning. You'll be our last speaker of the morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. My name is Matthew Curtis. I'm the property owner of 6 Donnybrook Lane. We come here today to seeking a fence exemption to build a 6-foot boundary fence on the side flankage yard of our property. We thank Councillor Campbell, who came to do a site visit to our property to see what we want to build. Basically, it's a side flankage fence that would be at the corner of Old Oak Road and Donnybrook Lane. The fence would be constructed on a slight angle in order to maintain a visibility triangle of 8.049 meters from the intersection. The type of fence is a board-by-board pressure treated wood. And basically, the reason why we want this fence is currently, as Councillor Campbell saw, we have trees that line the boundary of our property, but we also have 2 children under the age of 3 who obviously like to wander around, and those trees do not provide the privacy, or more importantly, the security to keep them inside our side in our side yard. So for that reason, we'd like to build a 6-foot high fence, and the reason as well is that the other side of our property, which I think the city would consider the backyard, is still on the side of our property on the other side of the house, and there's a garage that stands in the way. So the side of the house where we're seeking a fence bylaw exemption is where we already have a deck, and we already have side trees, boundary trees that we'd like to remove and put in some fencing. We also note that there's similarly sized fences along Donnybrook Lane along the north side. And we've worked with our landscape designer on a design that helps maximize visibility for drivers and pedestrians at the corner of Old Oak Road and Donnybrook Lane. There's actually a portion, if you review attachment 5 of the staff report, where the fence will go into our property and not go along the property line, and that's again to maximize the visibility triangle of 8.049 meters. We also note that there's been no formal complaints with respect to this exemption application. There's been no notice of violation. This is a proactive application to have the fence built. We've spoken to neighbors, and as I said earlier, we've had the city councilor come to our property, as well as city staff. I should also note, in terms of how it will look, there will be 2 large city trees, one on Old Oak Road and one on Donnybrook Lane, that will be in front of this fence. So you can see on the diagram submitted by our landscaper that there is an existing tree that will obviously not be disrupted by the proposed fence. Lastly, I would say that this application is in keeping with a fence exemption that was approved by this council at 20 Mitcham Drive on May 2nd. Very similar layout with respect to a side yard, house and then garage, and the exemption was permitted in that case for the side yard where the deck was located, again on a corner lot. We are requesting a final decision today because our landscapers have already started to work on installing a new deck, and in light of the fact that there won't be more community council meetings in the near future, we are requesting that a final decision be made on our fence exemption request. So those are my submissions. I'd welcome any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the Deputy Councillor Campbell? Question, so you talked to a number of your neighbors. How many you talked to neighbors on either side and other side of Donnybrook?
We canvassed certainly our neighbor to the left, who we have a boundary fence, which you may recall has been built. We actually built that with them. So we spoke to them. We spoke to the property owners across from us on Old Oak Road, and then we spoke with all of the neighbors along Donnybrook that face our property.
Did you have were there any objections or reservations?
No formal objections.
All right, okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much. I'm looking at the drawings, and you're right, you've got some large trees there, so none of the large trees will be damaged during this process, right?
We will not touch a tree. One of the trees that's not on the marking, which Councillor Campbell might be able to attest to, is on the other side closer to the garage, and that's, we estimate, almost 100 years old. We wouldn't dream of touching any of these large trees, and in fact, we want to ensure that the large trees remain. It will just be the boundary trees, which, if you look at the pictures, they're sort of deciduous, fairly small, and not terribly attractive trees. Those smaller trees are going to be removed, but the large trees that you can see in the pictures, attachment 3 and attachment number 2, I believe. Yeah, number 2. Those trees are not going to be touched in any way by the construction of the boundary fence.
Thank you. That was it.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll ask a quick one.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. Attachment number 2, northeast view from Old Oak Road facing 6 Donnybrook Lane. There's a photo in here. I don't know if you have the same report, but there's a fence already built. Looks like between you and your neighbors. Whose fence is that?
Well, it's a boundary fence, so it's both of ours.
But it's not the subject of this. It's there already.
It's there already. It's
Okay.
pre-existing, but we want to sort of close the loop. As you can see, there's a large gap, and as I mentioned earlier, we've got young children, and as you probably would know with toddlers, they like to go to explore, and obviously we want to contain them within our side yard and not have them wander onto the street.
Did you build that fence, though? The boundary fence? Or your neighbor?
We both built it. We had someone build it, but that was by agreement. And as Councillor Campbell asked me, we spoke with this neighbor with respect to today's application.
Thank you.
Sir,
Thank you.
any further speakers to the item? 6 Donnybrook Lane. Questions of staff? No questions of staff? Deputy Mayor Holiday?
Good afternoon already. I wonder if you could just advise me if there are any sightline concerns with any of the configurations proposed.
There are none.
There are none. Great. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Seeing none? Councillor Campbell.
Thank
First,
you,
you have to tell us where Donnybrook Lane came from, that name.
Donnybrook Lane, actually, there was a bit of a Donnybrook, because there was a grow-up up the street, but we took care of that thanks to Mark Schrag and his team, so, anyway, we think we have, anyway. So that's our Donnybrook Lane. It's off Dundas, just east of Islington. So I'm going to move number 2, to grant the exemption and permit the fence to be 1.82 meters. As Matthew said, I was at the site. I actually looked at this house a few years ago to buy it, but, it was out of my price range, so I'm glad a nice family bought it. And knowing the area, normally I would be a little uncomfortable with fences on corners like that, but he's talked to all his neighbors. It's well set back from the roadway. you know, young family, you've got to keep the kids, you know, in a visible space, so that's why I would like to grant the exemption.
Great speech.
Thank you. It's all about the speech.
All in favor of the exemption? Opposed? Carried. E, 32.27, applicant fence exemption 15 Lauren Bruce Drive in Ward 12. Are there any speakers on Lauren Bruce Drive? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Oh, there is. I'm sorry. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. You have 5 minutes. Thank you, sir.
I'm the owner for 115 Lauren Bruce Drive, and that's the picture for the fence looks like. So this is my driveway, and I built this fence 4.5 years ago, and I built the returning wall because my neighbor land that's more high on my property, and I built the 5'7" fence on the top, so that's less than 6 feet. And before build, I check on the computer how I can build my fence. So that's 2 meters. So I keep below 2 meters for the high points.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Seeing none? Thank you. No further speakers to the item. Councilor DeGiorgio, questions of staff?
Like one question of staff. So as the applicant has indicated, there's a difference in elevation between his property and the adjoining property to the east, I gather. And so at the end of the day, when you measure the height of the vinyl fence, and it's a vinyl fence, not a wood board on board?
Correct, vinyl.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to visit the site, so my inclination was to defer the item, but what is the actual height of the fence measured from the midpoint of the difference in elevation to the top of the vinyl fence?
Councillor, when we're speaking in regards to the retaining wall, the height differential, the process in which we follow through with our fence exemption is that you take a measurement 1 foot out from both sides of the fence, and then you're equaling the property size differences, which brings this fence at 2.4 meters.
So the height of the fence measured from, let's say, the midpoint of the retaining wall to the top is 2.4 meters?
Correct.
And the permitted is 2 meters, right?
Correct.
So we're talking about 0.4 meter difference, about a foot and change?
Correct.
Okay. You know what, I don't really think there's an urgency to making a decision on this issue. I mean, the fence has been built, and while my inclination is to approve it, I'd like to defer this so that I have an opportunity to speak with some adjoining neighbors.
Till January.
Yeah, till January. There really isn't any urgency to this thing. It's already been built. Okay. So my motion would be to defer, Mr. Chairman. No further questions, yeah.
Okay, which will be
January, February.
Okay, to the new council. All in favor of deferral? Opposed? Carried. Final report, number 32.7, final report 5569 Pelham Avenue, City Initiative Official Plan Amendment. We're going to skip over that. Councilor Plotzer's outside working on that motion. 32.8, final report 135 Plunkett Road Phase 2, zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan subdivision application. Are any?
What item?
It's 1:30, yes, you're right, it is 1:30. Okay, well, just 1 second. What number was that, Francis?
3221 and 3223
Okay.
that I would just, I held it down.
Hold it. Just 1 sec, George, 1 second. Okay, so we're not ready for that, right? We're not ready for 21 or 23?
23, she doesn't have 23.
Well, we're dealing with them together, so you just got that, so we have to stand that down. Councilor Manley, point of order.
Mr. Chairman, the clerk's just advised me that there's a letter that's come in. I'd like to just add this letter on the agenda if possible. It's about a liquor license.
Is it a new item?
Yeah, I have to do it.
Okay, so we'll have to draft out and we'll put it on the agenda, okay?
Yeah, I think she's already given it to you. I'm not.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if he's prepared to deal with it right now, but.
Well, I don't think we can right yet.
Just introduce it as a new item, if that's okay.
And what is the title again?
7th Annual Reggae Exclusive at 1677 Wilson Avenue West.
All in favor to add to the agenda? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we got all timed items, so we can maybe do some
Campbell held mine, 15.
15?
Yeah, get him in here.
Councillor Campbell?
Give questions to staff. See development.
You're gonna go to 3215. Request for director's report 400 D small zoning bylaw amendment application. You held the item. In Councillor Holiday's ward.
That's okay.
The question is in regard to the parkland dedication and why there was no, in this particular file, there was no requirement for a park to be set aside.
So in this application, we are taking cash in lieu opposed to on-site park. And the cash in lieu will be for 460 square meters.
460 square meters is 21 meters by 21 meters. So that, why would that not constitute a significant park or parkette, 21 meters by 21 meters? Why are we taking the cash in lieu as opposed to asking for green space?
In this application, we did not. We asked for outdoor amenity space for residents because it would be in the rear. And that would be adjacent to the loading and the parking garage ramp. So we didn't think that that was a perfect location for a park. So we asked for outdoor amenity space. And we had the buildings, the 2 blocks, frame both Birmingham and the East Mall.
So
I'd also jump in through you, Mr. Chair, that if you look at the staff report, Councillor, on page 21,
right.
It also says that this is the recommendations of Parks and Forestry staff.
Right.
That the site's located near Cronin Park and East Mall Park, so given the fact that there are 2 existing parks nearby and the size of the on-site park would be quite small, they would rather take the cash in lieu.
Okay, I mean, I have my opinions on that, I understand, but this, sorry, in the report, does it say that this is not a park deficient area, I guess? This is in the middle range, or? I've misfiled.
Yes, that's correct. On the previous page, it's in the middle quintile of park supply according to the official plan. That's correct.
Okay. All right, no, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, so seeing no further questions, Councillor Holiday, you're moving the staff recs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm moving a recommendation, an additional amendment, and the staff recs.
Okay.
You can just get that up on the screen. Okay. I have to turn to read to explain it. It's similar to the previous developments where we exclude this address from application for on-street parking. And I will point out that parking is constrained in the area and could result in future pressure, so we want to make sure that this does not result in on-street parking. Other than that, I am moving the staff recommendations. I hope you support them.
Okay, so Councillor Hall, or Deputy Mayor Holiday's recommendation on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Clause amended. All's in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3247, traffic calming Kane Avenue between Eglinton Avenue West and Rogers Road. Councillor DeGiorgio, you held the item. 3247.
I indicated earlier that there is a school really on a corner of Trowell and Kane, and while I did get a poll done on Trowell, which came back positive to introduce speed humps. On Kane, I'm asking that we adopt the alternate recommendation to do a poll on Kane.
To do a poll?
Yeah, to do a poll. So the alternate recommendation for
3247.
3247.
Okay, so you're asking for a poll?
Yep.
All in favor?
There's a school.
He's asking for a poll for speed humps. Okay? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Well, the results will come back.
All those in favor of Councillor DeGiorgio having a poll? You got slaughtered.
Having the results
Opposed?
come back.
That carries once again.
Scrutinized
Passed
by
twice.
Councillor Campbell and Councillor Holiday.
Follow the process.
it's to pull, and then if the pull passes, then install. So yeah, okay? So it's to pull, and if the pull passes, then install. Okay.
The 85th percentile is 38 kilometers an hour on this street.
5-1? No, I'm not ready for that. Okay,
You see the 85th percentile is 38 kilometers an hour.
yeah, I'm not ready for that. We did 68. Okay, we're gonna go to new business.
Look at the speeds on the street.
Okay, Councilor Giorgio, 32.69. Okay, we're gonna skip that one. We're gonna skip 70. Councilor Doucette, EY 32.71, 30 kilometer speed limit on Runnymede Road.
Questions of staff.
Questions of staff?
This is a technical amendment by staff, and I can explain about buses and bump outs and my predecessor if you'd like.
Okay, what questions of staff?
Yes.
Okay, questions of staff? I should say the same about yours. That's what we like.
Thank you. So, Mr. Capano, there are 30 kilometer an hour speed signs already all over the road, so
Yes.
how is it that we don't have a bylaw behind them?
We could not find, there was no report that was passed on this item. These things have been in place prior to 2009.
Okay.
There were some modular devices out there. There's one modular device out there already. Just we want to align the signage with what is in our code. Right now it says 40. That's all it is. It's a technical
Okay, and so is staff supportive of reducing the speed limit to 30?
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Opposed? Carried. Councillor Platsu's not here. Councillor Platsu's not here. Councillor Platsu's not here. Councillor Platsu's not here. Councillor Mamalidi is here. 3276, parking on Torbury Road. Councillor.
Mr. Chairman, you'll also notice a couple of handouts that the clerk gave you. I'm going to move staff recommendations.
Where's the stuff? These are your, aren't they?
If you read the attachments, the temporary sidewalk's already there, and the reason we had to wait so long is to put the temporary sidewalks in, and now we can open up parking for people.
So what you're moving, these are your recommendations or staff recommendation on this letter to me?
Oh, I thought staff, they were staff. If not, they're mine. Doesn't matter.
All right, so you're moving the recommendations on 3276?
Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Platsu's not here. What is this one? Okay, this is mine. Request for attendance at Toronto Local Appeal Body hearing expecting 11 Shamrock Avenue. I have the recommendation to send the city solicitor and authorize solicitor to settle any matter on behalf of the city. All in favor? 3278. Attendance at local appeals.
Oh, where's the staff report?
Okay?
Good to go.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. What is this one? This is mine. Request on Delma and Ward 6 to have submitted a petition to formally request installation of appropriate traffic calming measures on Delma Avenue. We're requesting the Director of Transportation Service to take a study of traffic calming on Delma. All in favor?
Fine.
Opposed? Carried. 3280. Committee of Adjustment. Appeal decision Committee of Adjustment. It's before us with regards to
Local appeal body.
local appeal body. All in favor? Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, carries anyways. Councillor Doucette, EY 31.81, reducing speed limit on certain local streets in Ward 13 to 30K. She's got them all listed.
Questions?
Reduce the speed limit on the following streets. Questions of staff, Councillor Holiday.
Thank you. Of the streets listed, do you support reducing any of them to 30 kilometers an hour?
We haven't done an in-depth study to see whether they're warranted under our 30K policy, so I wouldn't be able to answer that right now.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Doucette? Sorry?
I have a further question of staff.
What's the staff, Councillor Campbell?
So, are you aware of any reports and studies that have been done in the past on any of these?
On these particular locations, checking with staff, no.
Nothing. So there's never been a staff assessment of the traffic, the speed of cars, or anything of this?
Not to our recollection, no.
And so do you have any knowledge of these particular streets? Are these just quiet local roads? Is that
They are quiet local roads, yes.
Quiet local roads where people are already driving fairly slowly, probably, I would
Yes.
yeah. Okay, thank you. You're gonna have it's gonna be so easy for you.
Any other further questions of staff? Any further questions? Seeing none, Councillor Doucette is moving the recommendations, 31.81. Sure you can, yep.
So the reason you have these streets in front of you, Larkin is a one-way street with a bend. We had a child struck there a couple of years ago. Bradley, you probably know about fence exemptions. Dury, we're constantly hearing the trucks are going too fast. Halford is a cobblestone hill, which right now is only one lane because of a retaining wall, which needs fixing. They come very fast down the hill. Priscilla actually runs behind a high school parking lot. Cars come whizzing out of that parking lot around the street. Gilmore, we have done a study there to look at how to slow traffic down, but we looked more about stop signs and serpentine parking and things. Rexford is right the front door of a school, an elementary school. Cars are whizzing up and down there, and that's why each of these has a reason. I didn't just willy-nilly choose streets out of the sky. Thank you. Looking for your support.
So I can't support this because while those descriptions are nice, those are not staff reports. And we're supposed to enact changes to the city based on information. That information is not adequate. Cars whizzing, cobblestone. These are descriptions by the local councillor that do not appropriately or adequately convey what's really happening on these streets. And so we're going to give direction to change the speeds on these roads without any verifiable information. And as will be the case with other requests from councillors, I can't support this. And 30 kilometers an hour is not enforceable anyway. I would support it if we had staff recommendations that substantiated the request, but I'm not going to support it.
Okay, the motion is on the floor. All in favor of Councillor Doucette's motion? Councillor Giorgio? All in favor? Councillor Doucette? Councillor Palacio? Yes? No? Councillor Nunziata? Councillor Crisanti? Councillor Grimes? Opposed? Councillor... Okay, all in favor, once again. Councillor Giorgio, Councillor Doucette, Councillor Palacio, Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Crisanti, Councillor Grimes. Opposed? Councillor Campbell, Mamalidi, and Deputy Mayor Halden. That carries. Okay. Going back to EY 32.20, Councillor Palacio's motion's on the screen. It will be on the screen. Give you a second? Okay.
I voted no.
No, in the negative was Councillor Campbell, Mamalidi, and Deputy Mayor Halden. Okay, so staff need a second, Councillor Palacio on that one, so we'll keep moving right along. 3182, the intersection of Stanley Road and Stanley in my ward is a key pedestrian crossing. I'm asking for to report back on any possible modification. There's secondly a kid hit by a car a couple, probably 3 weeks to a month ago, so I'm asking for that to come back. All in favor? Opposed? 82? Carried. EY 31.83, speed limit amendment on Florence Crescent. It's to reduce the speed limit from 40 to 30.
Questions of staff?
Councillor.
Okay, just 1 second. Councillors, questions of staff. Councillor Holiday.
I'll ask the same question.
Okay, just...
We should just have a template for you.
Okay, just, he's within the right to ask his questions. Councillor Holiday to question.
Thank you. Could you comment on whether or not you support the recommendation to reduce the speed limit from 40 to 30?
Well, this particular location, I don't recall we've done any particular study. We haven't received any complaints or concerns related to speeding, so I will go based on the counselor's advice that they've heard that there have been some speeding issues, and that's why they're looking to reduce the speed limit.
Understood that there's been complaints, but does that mean that you recommend reducing the speed limit to 30?
That's not my call. That
Okay.
is community council's call.
And there's been no report prepared?
There's been no report prepared.
Thank you.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Dundas has motions on the screen, or is on before you?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak. It's my
Speak.
item.
Speak.
Okay, my report is to reduce the speed limit from 40 to 30 on Florence Crescent between Jane Street and St. Clair Avenue. Mr. Chairman, I know the same questions being asked by Councillor Holliday and Councillor Campbell. If there was a study done. The study that we do, and Councillor Doucette and Councillor Palacio and the rest of us do, is our study is done with the community. And if the community is requesting and they feel that they need, and we need to reduce the speed limit on particular streets where there's a lot of traffic taking shortcuts, to me, in my opinion, that should be sufficient. So I'm asking members of council to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Holliday, speak.
So I'll speak very briefly because I'd like to explain why I don't support this. Because we've heard at council before that changing the speed limit does not necessarily result in increased safety, and in fact can have the negative effect of having speed differentials between cars. And I feel very strongly that there's a process to go through all of this. I'd like to have the advice of staff. If the staff feel that it's something that needs to be done, great, we'll do it. And if we just don't know, then it may not be the wise choice. I appreciate Councillor Nunziata and the feelings that she may have with her community, but as a decision maker on this that has to choose something that may or may not result in better or worse safety, I want to use a lot of care, and I would like the advice of the staff on this matter. And until such time, I don't think I can support this.
Okay. Councillor Campbell to speak.
You know, I'm going to be even briefer than that. This is blatant election year pandering to a group of people. We don't know. You can say that people in the community want this, but you know what? I don't know how many people want it. And if this was 2015 or 2016, these wouldn't be before us. But it's 2018, and it's an election year, and that's why we're ramming all these things. And Councillor, you've already spoken.
Councillor,
that's
through
why.
me,
That's
please.
why. Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. That's why these things are coming through without staff recommendations.
Councillor Mammoliti, speak.
Don't hold back.
I'm going to move to bring back the horse and buggy onto this.
All right, that's out of order.
Okay, if it was,
Okay.
if it was 2014, I would still have the same
Councillor
request
Nunziata,
on this
please.
agenda.
Horse and buggy's out of order.
Councillor Mammoliti, please. The motion's on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. 3184, realignment of parking spaces 12A to include Royal Street. Approve the amended section B. Councillor Nunziata?
Yes, I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor has moved the staff recommendation, or no, her recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and this is comprehensive traffic study in Mimico. I said we had a child hit by a car, and we've got the residents up in arms. They're asking for a study for the area. My motions are attached to the sheets. Request the Director of Transportation Service to undertake a comprehensive traffic study in the Mimico neighborhood. It's a cut through for Humber Bay Shores. You heard me talk about the Waze app, taking people through our neighborhoods that have never seen traffic like that before, so I'm asking for a study to take place. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. No, not yet, we can't. Can we go back to, yes, we can? Okay. Okay, we're going back to EY 32.21 and 32.23.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, thank you. On 2.1, I want to, first of all, I want to thank staff for bringing this report forward on the planning study and framework for Mount Dennis. We actually had a walkabout with our chief planner and the BIA as well, along Western Road, along Mount Dennis, And what was really shocking is the south end of Eglinton Avenue, which was frustrating, is actually zoned residential, not commercial, and that's a commercial frontage along Weston Road. We always assumed it was commercial, but then we found out that no, in fact, it's residential, which was really disturbing because we're trying to revitalize Mount Dennis, and as well with the Eglinton line being completed. And we have all these vacant storefronts along Weston Road with people living with curtains. We're in desperate need of help in that area. And I want to thank Paul Bedford for mentioning that ULI has an interest in working with us in Mount Dennis as they did in Weston. So I'm moving the recommendation, but I'm also moving another recommendation to ask the planning staff that we have the consultation meeting in July. So those are my recommendations.
23 at the same time, correct?
No, 23, I have another motion.
Well, we're running out of time, so.
Okay, 21, this is
Okay,
21.
so 21, motions, council, okay, so motion to complete the item. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Sorry? Okay, well, but we got a break for lunch. We got a long day ahead of us, so, you know. Councilor Manley to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be consistent. I don't like what I'm seeing even with this in that neighborhood. I predict that this is going to be a bit of an issue, and I don't think the residents are going to like the outcome of it. When the former planner stands up and says we're going to get free services, what that amounts to, Councillor Nunziata, is, in my opinion, more poverty. And if you're encouraging poverty in the area, it's going to cause a problem in the future in your area, because I think we've got too much of it already. And I know that people just might disagree with it, but this is my view, and this is why I'm voting against it. Okay, and so I'm going to vote against it for that reason. You came to Councillor Nunziata screaming about the shelters. You didn't want a shelter in your area, right? This isn't
Okay, Councillor Nunziata. Councillor Nunziata.
See, in my opinion, this isn't a reflection of you, Councillor. It's not. It's now a plan that's going forward. And I'm just saying to you, I believe that it's going to be detrimental to the community with respect to what it's going to encourage. That's it.
Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, the amendment's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Clause is amended. All in favor? Opposed, carried. 23.
Yeah, and on 21, we were just supporting a planning study.
Okay, that's carried already.
On 3223, which is the, and I had deputants make a deputation on the gas station that's being proposed.
Councillor Nunziata, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. So my motion is that Etobicoke York Community Council delete the recommendations contained in the report from the Director of Community Planning, and to insert City Council refused a zoning bylaw amendment application to permit a gas station and associated commercial building at the property of 1391 Weston Road, and City Council direct the City Solicitor, appropriate City staff to attend the local planning appeal tribunal in support of the City's Council decision should the refusal be appealed. It's absolutely, when this application, when I was informed of the application, immediately I had concerns on it. I would strongly oppose the application for a gas station, and there's no point, in my opinion. I'm supporting the residents of Mount Dennis. As you know, we just approved the planning study. We don't need a gas station, and that we actually refuse the application because I do not support a gas station at this site in Mount Dennis, and that's the position that I have with my community.
Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, the motion is on the screen. Amendment, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recess to 1:30.
They'll just move the record.